Chapter 943. After entering the array formation, the scene before Emo Qingyun's eyes became a hazy expanse. In front of him, there were clumps of black and white qi that were randomly flying. Bang! The black and white qi collided and began to fuse together, slowly forming a faint human figure. It was a child that had just been born. After the black qi turned into a child, the child began to grow little by little. Youth, middle age, old age in a short period of time, the child formed by the black and white qi had experienced a lifetime of reincarnation. Bang! After the child formed by the black qi experienced a lifetime of reincarnation, it directly exploded and turned back into black and white qi, fluttering aimlessly within the formation. Following that, the black qi continuously turned into children and experienced reincarnation before Emo Qingyun's eyes. After seeing this scene, Emo Qingyun's expression could not help but change. He knew what kind of formation was in front of him. Life and death nirvana reincarnation formation. After knowing the origin of this formation, Emo Qingyun could not help but be startled. He inwardly said, "If I'm not wrong, this should be the ancient divine beast Phoenix's place of nirvana. With the help of this life and death nirvana reincarnation formation, it can undergo nirvana rebirth." Miss Murong, the life and death nirvana reincarnation formation is not a dangerous formation. We can be considered safe now. Emo Qingyun faintly smiled at Murong Qinyu. After comforting her, his expression became a little more serious. He continued, however, the blood fiend demigod is still guarding the exit of the valley. It seems that if we want to leave this place, we will need to beat him back. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Murong Qingyu's expression could not help but become a little gloomy. From her point of view, if they were unable to defeat the blood fiend demigod, they would probably be trapped here forever. More importantly, with their current strength, it was too difficult to defeat the blood fiend demigod. However, when Murong Qinyu saw Emo Qingyun in front of her, her expression could not help but be a little more delighted. Perhaps in her heart, she thought that being able to stay in this array formation with Emo Qingyun was a very good thing. The life and death nirvana samsara array does not possess any killing power. Although it has temporarily frightened demigod bloodfiend, if demigod bloodfiend were to see through it, it would be troublesome if he were to rush in. Considering that the life and death nirvana samsara formation did not possess any killing power, Emo Qingyun frowned a little. His expression became a little more solemn as he said, "Looks like I need to make some preparations to prevent the blood fiend half-sovereign from charging in. We won't have any power to rely on. However, we're currently within this life and death reincarnation formation, so how can we take precautions against any dangers?" Murong Qinyu was puzzled. He didn't know what Emo Qingyun meant, nor did he know what Emo Qingyun was planning to do. With regards to Murong Qingyu's puzzlement, Emo Qingyun faintly smiled and explained to her, "In a moment, I will arrange some illusory, killing, and trapping arrays at the entrance of the life and death nirvana samsara formation. At that time, they should be able to block the blood fiend demigod for a period of time." "Arrange arrays? You also know about arrays?" Murong Qingyu's charming face changed and ripples rose in her heart. The gaze she used to look at Emo Qingyun changed a little. With regards to the change in Murong Qingyu's gaze, Emo Qingyun did not notice. After he explained to Murong Qinyu, he immediately began to arrange the arrays. Subsequently, Murong Qinyu silently stood to the side and watched Emo Qingyun arrange the arrays. No one knew what she was thinking. One day later. "Phew! It's finally completed." Emo Qingyun stopped his movements and revealed a satisfied smile. He was very satisfied with his masterpiece and said with a faint smile, "With the combined might of these arrays, even if it can't seriously injure the blood fiend half-sovereign, it's enough to make him battered and exhausted." After muttering to himself with a faint smile, Emo Qingyun's expression became serious again. He said in a deep voice, With this array we can wholeheartedly start to cultivate. Next, before the blood fiend half-sovereign comes in, I must raise my cultivation by 1 level. Raise your cultivation by 1 level? Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Murong Qingyo's beautiful eyebrows slightly knitted. She revealed an embarrassed expression and said, with our current realm, to raise our cultivation by 1 level, it will take at least 1 year. To raise our cultivation by 1 level in a short period of time, I'm afraid it won't be an easy thing. Under normal circumstances, that's indeed the case. However, I will arrange a time shift array for you. It can double your cultivation speed. Regarding Murong Qingyo's apprehension, Emo Qingyun faintly smiled and spoke to dispel the worry in her heart. Time shift array. Murong Qingyo's expression was slightly startled. Although she had seen Emo Qingyun's array skills, she did not expect that Emo Qingyun would actually know this kind of array. Subsequently, under Murong Qingyo's gaze, Emo Qingyun unhurriedly arranged the time shift array. After several hours, a magnificent light formed the array in front of Emo Qingyun and Murong Qingyu. It formed a light curtain that was like the flow of time, emitting a mysterious power. The time shift array was completed. Phew! It's finally a success. Seeing that the time shift array was successfully arranged, Emo Qingyun revealed a brilliant smile. He said to Murong Qingyu with a faint smile, due to the lack of refining materials and the lack of time, I can only arrange a 10 times time shift array. If you enter it to cultivate, cultivating for 1 day inside is equivalent to cultivating for 10 days outside. 10 times cultivation speed. Murong Qingyo's charming face was startled. Her beautiful eyes widened as she stared blankly at Emo Qingyun. Clearly, she was not lightly shocked by Emo Qingyun's words. Looking at Emo Qingyun's appearance, it seemed that he was not satisfied with the 10 times cultivation speed. Then, I will start cultivating. After all, Murong Qingyu was not an ordinary person. After a short moment of surprise, she smiled sweetly at Emo Qingyun and walked into the time shift array to cultivate. Seeing that Murong Qingyu had entered the time shift array, Emo Qingyun did not stay idle. He lifted his foot and walked towards the center of the life and death nirvana samsara array. Seeing Emo Qingyun's action, Murong Qingyu revealed a puzzled expression. She asked puzzledly, Emo Qingyun, you're not coming in to accompany me? You're not coming in to accompany me? When Murong Qingyu said this, her charming face unconsciously turned bright red. She seemed to feel that these words were somewhat inappropriate. I want to borrow the help of the life and death nirvana samsara array to comprehend the origin power of life and death. Therefore, I will not enter the time shift array. Emo Qingyun shook his head and explained to Murong Qingyu. Then, he continued to walk towards the center of the life and death nirvana samsara array. Hearing Emo Qingyun say this, Murong Qingyu did not say anything else and began to cultivate in the time shift array. Chapter 944. Devouring Gate. Sitting in the center of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array, Emo Qingyun immediately used the devouring gate to devour the life and death source energy of the array. To him, time was very precious. Therefore, he couldn't afford to waste any of it. Otherwise, once the blood fiend demigod charged in and destroyed the array at the entrance of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array, what could he use to resist the blood fiend demigod? With his current cultivation, it was absolutely impossible for him to resist the blood fiend demigod's attack. Therefore, while the life and death nirvana reincarnation array could still intimidate the blood fiend demigod, he had to seize the time to raise his cultivation. Under the devouring gate's absorption, the black and white chi within the life and death nirvana reincarnation array was tyrannically sucked in. When the black chi was sucked into the devouring gate, it was transformed into life and death source energy by the devouring gate and entered Emo Qingyun's body. Immediately after, Mo Qingyun began to comprehend the life and death source energy bit by bit, raising his own life and death source energy. Following that, time slowly passed as Mo Qingyun and Murong Qingyun cultivated. After an unknown period of time, bang bang bang, loud noises came from the entrance of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array. Someone was destroying the array at the entrance. After discovering this, Mo Qingyun's expression was immediately startled and he withdrew from his cultivation. Could it be that the blood fiend demigod is destroying the array? Following that, Mo Qingyun's figure flashed and arrived at the entrance of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array. What's going on? When Mo Qingyun arrived at the entrance of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array, Murong Qinyu revealed a nervous expression and came to Mo Qingyun's side. Don't be nervous, I'll go take a look. After comforting Murong Qinyu, Mo Qingyun's figure flashed and entered the array at the entrance. Roar. As Mo Qingyun entered the array at the entrance, sinister-looking demonic beasts appeared in his line of sight. The eyes of these demonic beasts were blood-red, as if they were under a spell. They frantically attacked the array at the entrance. Demonic beast. Looking at the demonic beasts before him, Mo Qingyun's brows furrowed as a strong sense of foreboding rose in his heart. He didn't think that demigod blood fiend would have such a trump card. If that was the case, the thing he was worried about would happen. Once the blood fiend demigod passed the devil beast's verification and knew that there was no danger in the life and death nirvana samsara array, he would rush in without hesitation. At that time, Mo Qingyun and Murong Qingyu's situation would become incomparably worrisome. We absolutely cannot let blood fiend demigod discover us. This life and death nirvana samsara array is not dangerous. At this moment, Mo Qingyun quickly made a decision in his heart. His expression turned cold as he coldly said, "If we want the blood fiend demigod to continue being unable to see through the depths of the life and death nirvana samsara array, we must kill these devil beasts that have entered the array." 7 essences as one. Then, Mo Qingyun no longer hesitated and attacked the devil beast in front of him with all his might. Under the support of the 7 different essences, the colorless sword flickered with radiance as it slashed out a 7-colored sword light with astonishing momentum. As soon as the sword radiance was unleashed, it swept forward. Wherever it passed, all the demonic beasts were beheaded and killed on the spot. However, although the devil beasts within the array were killed, the devil beasts outside the array were still rushing in endlessly. Seeing such a situation, Mo Qingyun's brows furrowed even tighter. This was not a good sign. Next, Mo Qingyun crazily hunted down the devil beasts, killing all the devil beasts that had rushed into the array. Time slowly passed. At this moment, Mo Qingyun and the devil beasts were fighting a tug-of-war against time. It depended on who could last the longest. If Mo Qingyun's yuan power was insufficient and he was unable to kill the devil beasts that had entered the array, the consequences could be imagined. Fortunately, after 2 hours, the devil beasts finally stopped entering the life and death nirvana samsara array. Phew! I finally made it through. Seeing that there were no more devil beasts coming in, Mo Qingyun let out a deep breath as his expression became much more relaxed. Next, Mo Qingyun began to repair the array, repairing the places that had been destroyed by the devil beast. Not only that, but after repairing the original formation, Mo Qingyun also set up some trapping formations and killing formations. This made the defensive and destructive power of the array at the entrance more stable and powerful than before. After finishing all this, Mo Qingyun felt relieved and walked out of the array. What happened? Why did you go in for so long? Seeing Mo Qingyun coming out of the array, Murong Qingyu's face revealed a worried expression. She hurriedly asked about Mo Qingyun's situation and said, "Did the blood fiend demigod come to break the array? Did he leave now?" "It's not the blood fiend demigod, it's close to 10,000 devil beasts breaking the array. It should be the blood fiend demigod." Emo Qingyun's face revealed a dignified expression as he explained to Murong Qingyu. He continued, "Next, I'm afraid we won't be able to cultivate in peace. We must leave someone behind to guard the array to prevent the devil beasts from coming in to break the array again. I'll guard the array. My cultivation has just broken through to the Heaven Dipper 8th stage. I'm afraid I won't be able to break through again in a short period of time." Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Murong Qingyu recommended herself without any hesitation. She revealed a serious expression and said, "In addition, I have a way to deal with the devil beasts. Therefore, it's more suitable for me to guard the array." "Alright." Hearing Murong Qingyu's words, Emo Qingyun did not refuse and nodded in agreement to her suggestion. Next, Emo Qingyun explained the method of controlling the array to Murong Qingyu in detail. After he finished explaining everything, Emo Qingyun took out a jade slip and handed it over to Murong Qingyu. "Inside this jade slip, there is a soul imprint of mine. If you can't resist the invasion of the demonic beasts, crush it and I will enter the formation to help you. And got it. Quickly go and cultivate." Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Murong Qingyu smiled sweetly at Emo Qingyun. She made an expression that made Emo Qingyun feel relieved. "Alright." Emo Qingyun nodded and walked towards the center of the life and death nirvana samsara array. He began to refine and comprehend the life and death origin. Time passed by little. In the following period of time, several waves of devil beasts rushed into the life and death nirvana samsara array. However, they were all blocked by Murong Qingyu. During this period of time, with the help of the life and death nirvana samsara array, Emo Qingyun's life and death origin realm increased very quickly. At this moment, Emo Qingyun, who had been cultivating all this time, suddenly opened his eyes, a look of intense surprise appearing on his face. The life and death origin power has finally reached perfection. Seeing that the life and death origin power had reached perfection, Emo Qingyun's expression turned serious. He said in a deep voice, "Since the life and death origin power has reached perfection, next, I'll attack the divine ability realm in one go." After speaking, Emo Qingyun no longer hesitated. He once again immersed himself in cultivation and began to attack the divine ability realm. Chapter 945. During this period of cultivation, Emo Qingyun's cultivation had long reached the peak of the heaven star border realm. If not for Emo Qingyun suppressing his cultivation and not allowing his cultivation to break through to the transcendent realm, he would have already reached the transcendent realm. Now that Emo Qingyun wanted to break through to the transcendent realm, there was naturally no difficulty. Boom! As Emo Qingyun released the suppression of his cultivation, the yuan energy in his body rushed towards the barrier of the realm like water that had been opened. Under the impact of this violent yuan energy, the barrier of the realm was like a thin piece of paper that was instantly broken through forcefully. As the barrier of the realm was broken through, Emo Qingyun instantly felt that his body had become much more majestic. That feeling was as if his originally 1 meter tall figure had suddenly become 100 feet tall. The heaven star border realm is indeed incomparable to the transcendent realm. The yuan energy in my body is now at least 10 times richer than the heaven star border realm. Sensing the increase in his strength, Emo Qingyun was pleasantly surprised and began to cultivate to stabilize his current realm. Several hours later, under Emo Qingyun's continued cultivation, his realm finally stabilized. Since my realm has been stabilized, it's time to condense the transcendent treasure elephant. Seeing that his realm had been completely stabilized, Emo Qingyun did not want to waste any time and immediately began to condense the transcendent treasure elephant. The most important thing for cultivation to break through to the transcendent realm was to condense one's own transcendent treasure elephant and let the origin energy completely merge into one's body. At this moment, 9 different colored origin energy flew out of Mo Qingyun's body one after another. When the 9 origin energy flew out of Mo Qingyun's body, the creation mountain and river diagram also flew out of his body and merged tightly with the 9 origin energy. As the 9 origin energy merged with the creation mountain and river diagram, the shape of the creation mountain and river diagram began to change slowly. The creation mountain and river diagram, which was originally in the shape of a scroll, began to solidify and expand bit by bit, evolving into a real mountain, river, and land. Mo Qingyun quickly discovered the changes in the creation mountain and river diagram, which shocked Mo Qingyun. The current situation was something he had not expected. I wonder what the landscape of creation will look like after it evolves into a magical treasure elephant. Mo Qingyun could not help but feel excited as he watched the creation mountain and river diagram slowly solidify and strengthen. A strong sense of anticipation rose in his heart. After observing the changes in the creation mountain and river diagram, Mo Qingyun started to condense the essence force in his body and prepared to break through the barrier of the transcendent realm. A few days later, after a few days of evolution, the creation mountain and river diagram had completely evolved into the shape of a real continent. This continent was similar to the Tianhun continent in that it was home to countless living beings who cultivated, played, and reproduced. If there was a difference between this continent and the Tianhun continent, it would be that the Tianhun continent was smaller in size. Is this my divine ability treasure elephant? Looking at the floating continent in front of him, Mo Qingyun's face lit up with excitement. Ecstasy rose in his heart as he said, "Since you evolved from the Fortune Mountain and River diagram, then you shall be called the Fortune Continent." Boom! At this moment, while Mo Qingyun was still in shock over the creation mountain and river diagram, he suddenly felt a buzz in his head. Following that, Mo Qingyun discovered that the connection between him and the creation mountain and river diagram seemed to have become closer. However, before Mo Qingyun could recover from his shock, an unbelievable situation occurred and stunned him instantly. My Dantian is gone, no. It seems like my Dantian has turned into the Fortune Continent? A person's Dantian turning into a continent, what kind of situation was this? Mo Qingyun had no idea at all. Because, even with his previous life's experience as a Supreme Realm expert, he had never heard of such a thing. In other words, from now on, the heaven and earth essence force contained in the Fortune Continent would become the essence force in Mo Qingyun's body. A person being able to use the essence force of an entire continent, what a freakish thing this was! If such a thing were to spread out, perhaps even a transcendent realm expert would be scared to death. More importantly, everyone knew that the Dantian was the weakest part of a cultivator's body. Now, Mo Qingyun's Dantian had turned into a continent. One could only imagine how freakish his Dantian was. It could be said that from now on, Mo Qingyun's strongest part was his Dantian. At this moment, after Mo Qingyun was connected to the Fortune Continent, a 9-colored rainbow appeared above the Fortune Continent. After this 9-colored rainbow appeared, it pierced through the Fortune Continent in an instant, sending down rays of 9-colored light. Bathed in this 9-colored light, the Fortune Continent's inhabitants revealed intoxicated expressions, as if they had received a blessing from the heavens. At the same time, a strange energy flew out from their bodies, turning into golden light spots. After these golden light spots appeared, they flew out from the Fortune Continent and entered Mo Qingyun's body little by little. What an amazing strange energy! Mo Qingyun was pleasantly surprised when he saw the strange energy constantly pouring into his body. He became excited and said in pleasant surprise, "If this strange energy is constantly produced at this speed, I'll probably only need 3 days to use the Divine Lotus General's true body summoning talisman." There was often a gap between reality and imagination. While Mo Qingyun's heart was filled with anticipation, the nine-colored rainbow slowly dissipated. As the nine-colored rainbow slowly dissipated, the strange energy's speed also slowed down. Seeing this situation, Emo Qingyun felt a little regretful. However, Emo Qingyun didn't mind too much. A bright smile appeared on his face as he said, "Although the nine-colored rainbow didn't last long, the strange energy produced in this short period of time is equivalent to 100 times of a normal day. I wonder how Qinyu is doing now?" Coming out from his cultivation, Emo Qingyun had a nervous expression on his face as he rushed towards the entrance of the Life and Death Nirvana Reincarnation Array. Moments later, Emo Qingyun entered the array and saw Murong Qinyu fighting with the devil beast. At this moment, Murong Qingyu's gaze was cold and indifferent, with a trace of stubbornness that refused to admit defeat. With Emo Qingyun's eyesight, he could clearly see that Murong Qinyu had reached her limit. At this moment, it was obvious that her essence force was running out. The reason she was still able to persevere was due to the support of her conviction. 9 essences as one. Seeing this, Emo Qingyun no longer hesitated. Holding the colorless sword, he charged towards the devil beast. After Emo Qingyun's sword slashed out, a 9-colored sword light erupted from the colorless sword, swallowing a large number of devil beasts in an instant. Chapter 946. Qingyun, you finished cultivating. I finally did it. Seeing Emo Qingyun in front of her, Murong Qinyu was pleasantly surprised. She was like a little girl who had completed her goal. Perhaps because she was too tired, Murong Qinyu only spoke half of her sentence before she fainted. Seeing that Murong Qinyu had fainted, Emo Qingyun quickly raised his hand to hold her waist and pulled her into his arms. Then, Emo Qingyun held Murong Qinyu with one hand and killed the devil beasts in the formation with the other hand. Under Emo Qingyun's powerful attacks, the devil beasts in the formation were killed one by one. After half an hour, not a single devil beast could be found in the formation. They all died under Emo Qingyun's sword. After killing all the devil beasts in the formation, Emo Qingyun held Murong Qinyu and left the formation. He helped her to sit down in the Life and Death Nirvana Reincarnation formation. After Murong Qinyu sat down, she woke up from her coma. She looked at Emo Qingyun with a confused gaze. "Qingyun, did you have a breakthrough in your cultivation?" Looking at Emo Qingyun in front of her, Murong Qinyu smiled weakly. Her tone was a bit weak. It seemed that in the previous battle, she had overdrafted her Yuanli. There were already some sequelae. "Silly girl, since you have reached your limit, why didn't you crush the jade slip I gave you?" Looking at the weak Murong Qinyu in front of him, Emo Qingyun showed a distressed expression and said with a bit of blame, "I believe that if you were guarding the formation, you would do the same." Towards Emo Qingyun's reproaching words, Murong Qinyu smiled sweetly. She did not show the slightest bit of displeasure. On the contrary, when she heard Emo Qingyun's reproaching words, she felt happy and sweet in her heart. In her opinion, the reason why Emo Qingyun said that was because he cared about her. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Emo Qingyun was somewhat speechless. Murong Qinyu was right. If he was the one guarding the formation, he would be the same as Murong Qinyu. "You have overdrafted your essence force. Rest here for a while and I will refine a cauldron of elixirs for you." Looking at Murong Qinyu, whose complexion was somewhat pale, Emo Qingyun gently instructed her, then took out the holy beast cauldron. "You also know alchemy?" Seeing Emo Qingyun's action, Murong Qinyu couldn't help but reveal a surprised expression. He was very surprised by this scene. As she continued to interact with Emo Qingyun, she realized that there was nothing that Emo Qingyun could not do. "You'll know in the future." With regards to Murong Qingyu's question, Emo Qingyun did not directly answer. He only faintly smiled and said again, "Quickly cultivate and recover. If you delay for too long, it may affect your future cultivation." If you don't want to say, then don't say. Do you think I really want to know?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's answer, Murong Qingyu pretended to be displeased and raised her white chin. She seemed to want to use this to express her dissatisfaction with Mo Qingyun. However, although Murong Qingyu said so, the sweet smile on her face betrayed her inner thoughts. From her sweet smile, she was not angry with Mo Qingyun at all. Bang bang bang. Just as Mo Qingyun was preparing to refine elixirs for Murong Qingyu to recover, a loud sound was heard. Haha, Saintess Qingyu, although you have been slaughtering my devil beasts, you didn't expect that in the end, you still missed one. Immediately after the loud sound, Shueisha Demigod's complacent words were transmitted to Mo Qingyun and Murong Qingyu's ears. Hearing Shueisha Demigod's words, Murong Qingyu's expression paled a bit. Her expression revealed intense worry as she blamed herself. It's all my fault. I didn't kill all of those devil beasts and let Shueisha Demigod know about the situation of the life and death nirvana samsara array. No need to think too much. Leave everything to me. You just need to focus on recovering. Seeing Murong Qingyu's face full of self-blame, Mo Qingyun faintly smiled at her to make her feel at ease. And hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Murong Qingyu obediently nodded and began to cultivate to recover. Murong Qingyu thought in her heart that if she recovered a bit more yuan power, she would be able to help Mo Qingyun a bit more. Seeing that Murong Qingyu had begun to recover, Mo Qingyun didn't continue to stay. His figure moved and rushed towards the entrance of the life and death nirvana samsara array. After arriving at the entrance of the life and death nirvana samsara array, Mo Qingyun saw Shueisha Demigod frantically bombarding the array that was blocking his path. When Mo Qingyun saw Shueisha Demigod also saw Mo Qingyun. He revealed a bewildered expression and said, Your cultivation has actually broken through to the transcendent realm. It seems that you haven't been idle during this period of time. With you guarding outside, how would I dare to slack off in the slightest? Hearing Shueisha Demigod's words, Mo Qingyun faintly smiled. There wasn't the slightest bit of panic in his expression. Mo Qingyun's cultivation had broken through to the transcendent realm. At this moment, when he faced Shueisha Demigod again, he no longer felt the pressure from before. Kid, you are quite self-aware. It seems that Qingyu Saintess has been guarding the cave during this period of time so that you can cultivate. Shueisha Demigod smiled faintly at Mo Qingyun. His expression was mocking as he sneered and said, In that case, let me see how much you have improved during this period of time. I hope that you won't be too surprised later. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly. He then took out the colorless sword and faced Shueisha Demigod head-on. Bloodbath Demonic Book, Bloodbat covers the moon. Under Shueisha Demigod's attack, a huge ball of blood chi and origin energy rapidly gathered in front of him. In the blink of an eye, the huge ball of blood chi turned into a huge bloodbat that emitted a gloomy and bloody aura. Flap, flap. As the bloodbat flapped its wings, it let out a low sound and released blood-colored sound waves that disturbed one's mind. Primordial demonic sound peeper-rune, shake. In the face of the bloodbat's sound waves, Mo Qingyun didn't dare hesitate. He immediately took out the primordial demonic sound peeper-rune. Buzz. As soon as the primordial demonic sound peeper-rune was taken out, it emitted demonic sound waves that collided with the blood-colored sound wave. Immediately after, the blood-colored sound wave's influence on Mo Qingyun's mind was reduced to a negligible level. The weapon talisman real body of the weapon talisman sect. Seeing the white jade peeper-rune above Mo Qingyun, Shueisha Demigod was shocked. His gaze sharpened as he said coldly, Lad, who exactly are you? Why do you have the weapon talisman sect's legacy on the path of the celestial path? I don't think I need to tell you about this. Mo Qingyun replied coldly with a disdainful expression in response to Shueisha Demigod's question. Since you don't want to tell me, I will personally seek the answer. After Shueisha Demigod finished speaking, He didn't say anything more to Emo Qingyun and attacked Emo Qingyun again. Good timing, I can borrow your strength to test my strength. Chapter 947. Demonic Book of Blood. Demonic Spear shakes the world. Demigod Xue Sha raised his hand and a terrifying blood-colored yuan power burst out from his hand. Immediately after, this threatening blood-colored origin energy transformed into a blood spear that soared into the sky. As Demigod Xue Sha waved the blood-colored spear, it suddenly glowed with blood-colored light and looked extremely beautiful. Streaks of intimidating blood blades shot out from the flashing blood spear and shot towards Emo Qingyun at an extremely fast speed. 9 origins as one. Facing Demigod Xue Sha's attack, Emo Qingyun did not dare to be careless and directly released the 9 origins. After the 9 origins were released, they merged with yuan power and formed a 9-colored sword light that went towards the blood-colored blades. Bang bang bang, when the 9-colored sword light and the blood-colored blades collided, there was a loud boom and a shocking yuan power wave exploded. Facing the impact of the yuan power wave, Emo Qingyun and Demigod Xue Sha quickly retreated to avoid being swallowed by the yuan power wave. When Emo Qingyun and Demigod Xue Sha were dodging, some of the array foundations were instantly destroyed by the shockwaves. Boom boom boom. When the array foundations were damaged, some of the arrays instantly collapsed and there was a loud explosion. Seeing several formations being destroyed one after another, Demigod Blood Fiend revealed a smug expression. He looked at Emo Qingyun and sneered, "Brat, now that half of the formations are destroyed, this old man wants to see what you will use to stop me. Humph! Even without the help of the arrays, it is still easy for me to kill you." In response to Demigod Xue Sha's smug words, Emo Qingyun did not have the slightest emotion and replied indifferently. After exchanging blows with the Blood Fiend Demi-Venerate, Emo Qingyun already had a rough understanding of his own strength. With the level of his current origin energy, even a quasi-Exalt Realm expert was still unable to compare to him. Demigod Xue Sha was no longer invincible in Emo Qingyun's eyes. 9 origins as one. After staring at Demigod Xue Sha, Emo Qingyun did not hesitate and took the lead to slash at Demigod Xue Sha. With a slash, Emo Qingyun's long sword suddenly had a mysterious power. This was the power of the Sword Force. Sword Force. This kid actually comprehended the power of the Sword Force. Sensing the power of the colorless sword, the Blood Fiend Demigod's expression could not help but change, revealing a trace of surprise. He did not expect Emo Qingyun to successfully comprehend the power of the Sword Force when he had just broken through to the Divine Realm. However, Demigod Blood Fiend was only slightly surprised by this. He did not show too much of a change in his emotions. After all, many Transcendent Realm cultivators, as long as they were slightly more talented, would be able to comprehend some of the power of the sword. Demigod Xue Sha was Xue Sha's did not speak Xue Sha's? However, in the following exchange of blows, the more Demigod Blood Fiend fought, the more shocked and terrified he became. He realized that as Emo Qingyun continued to exchange blows with him, Emo Qingyun's comprehension of the sword force increased at a crazy speed. In the blink of an eye, Emo Qingyun's control of the power of the sword force increased from the beginner's level to the peak of the small success level. This kind of speed of improvement could be said to be very abnormal. Under normal circumstances, even a Supreme Realm expert might not be able to comprehend the realm of the sword force to the small success level. On the other hand, what about Emo Qingyun? After exchanging a few hundred blows with him, Xue Sha had comprehended the realm of the sword force to the small success level. What a crazy speed of improvement! At this moment, Emo Qingyun's comprehension had completely broken Demigod Xue Sha's understanding. This kid can't be left alive. After a short moment of shock, Demigod Xue Sha made a decision and looked at Emo Qingyun coldly. At this moment, as Demigod Xue Sha's killing intent intensified, Emo Qingyun's sword came again. Seeing this, demigod Xue Sha did not dare to be careless and quickly blocked the attack with his blood spear. Emo Qingyun and the Xue Sha half-venerate clashed once again, and they fought crazily. Right now, if there was anyone present, they would definitely be greatly shocked by the scene before them. A pseudo-exalt was actually unable to retaliate against a first-level transcendent realm cultivator. It had to be said that this was really too abnormal. Just a little more. As Emo Qingyun continued to exchange blows with demigod Xue Sha, his comprehension of the sword force became deeper and clearer. Presently, his comprehension of sword force had already reached the limit of minor accomplishment, and he was merely a step away from attaining mastery. Once his comprehension of sword force reached a higher level, defeating the blood fiend demigod would be as easy as flipping his hand. Of course, the reason why Emo Qingyun could comprehend the sword force so quickly was mainly because of his foundation in understanding the saber force. The comprehension of the power of the universe was different, and it led to the same goal. Many monstrous geniuses were able to use all kinds of grand forces at their fingertips when using the grand forces of heaven and earth. At this moment, Emo Qingyun was comprehending the sword force. In fact, he was only converting the use of the saber force to the use of the sword force. Once his conversion of the saber force reached the limit of his comprehension of the saber force, it would be difficult for him to improve the realm of the sword force. Bang! There was another earth-shattering collision. This time, Emo Qingyun and demigod Xue Sha were both sent flying. Puff! After Emo Qingyun and demigod Xue Sha steadied themselves, they spat out a mouthful of blood and squatted on the ground. At this moment, waves of origin energy swept across the two of them, and they instantly emitted a murderous aura. The higher realm of the sword force, how is this possible? Seeing that Emo Qingyun's sword force had improved again, demigod Xue Sha's expression trembled and a strong chill rose in his heart. In less than 2 hours, Emo Qingyun had improved his comprehension of the sword force from the beginner level to the higher realm. This terrifying speed of comprehension had never appeared in demigod Xue Sha's memory. The realm of the sword force has finally reached the higher realm. Compared to demigod Xue Sha's shock, Emo Qingyun's heart was filled with ecstasy and excitement. After the crazy fight with demigod Xue Sha, he had not only converted the use of the saber force to the use of the sword force. Moreover, he had also successfully improved his comprehension of the sword force to the next level. This was something that he had not expected before. Immediately after, Emo Qingyun revealed a faint smile and slowly stood up. He looked sharply at demigod Xue Sha and said, "In order to thank you for accompanying me in comprehending the sword, I will let you die in a dignified manner. Brat, don't be so arrogant. Although your sword force realm is high, there is a huge gap between our cultivations and it is not so easy to make up for." Demigod Xue Sha's expression was as cold as ice when he heard Emo Qingyun's cold words. His body emitted a strong chill. Chapter 948. Blood Qi Rampage. Since he had decided to kill the blood fiend demigod, Emo Qingyun did not hold back and unleashed his martial soul superpower, Blood Qi Rampage. Pa-pa-pa-pa crisp sounds of bones being dislocated could be heard from Emo Qingyun's body, giving off a primitive and barbaric aura. Immediately after, a purple blood qi slowly gathered on the surface of Emo Qingyun's body and turned into a purple shadow. At the same time, the aura that Emo Qingyun exuded increased by several times. However, what surprised Emo Qingyun was that the blood qi rampage this time didn't increase his cultivation. It only increased the strength of his blood qi. The martial soul superpower blood qi rampage seems to have changed. Emo Qingyun's expression changed slightly. Bewilderment rose in his heart. He was somewhat surprised by the current situation. However, Emo Qingyun was not too concerned about it. This was because he could feel that although the blood qi rampage had changed, its aura had become stronger. The blood chi rampage now lived up to its name as it only increased the strength of the blood chi. What a shocking bloodline power! Feeling the power of the blood chi on Emo Qingyun's body, the blood fiend demigod was shocked. He looked at Emo Qingyun with fear and said to himself, "This lad's bloodline power is at least 100 times stronger than my heavenly demon clan's bloodline power. Where did he come from?" As he continued to fight with Emo Qingyun, he realized that he could not see through Emo Qingyun. Strange superpower, strong comprehension, and terrifying bloodline power. All of this made Emo Qingyun seem like he was shrouded in a layer of fog, giving people a mysterious and strange feeling. Sealed door. Emo Qingyun did not care about the blood fiend demigod's shock and immediately unleashed the sealed door. In an instant, a mini light gate formed in front of Emo Qingyun and blasted towards the blood fiend demi-venerate. "Humph! Brat, you've gone too far." Seeing Emo Qingyun attack him in such a disdainful manner, demigod blood fiend flew into a rage. He raised his hand and grabbed at the sealed door. However, at that moment, demigod blood fiend had evidently underestimated the might of the sealed gate. As soon as his hand touched the sealed door flashed and entered his body, beginning to seal his bloodline and soul. Not long after, the blood fiend demigod's appearance had aged a little, and even his body had become a little hunched. Of course, Half-Reverend Shueisha's cultivation had also weakened significantly at this moment. It didn't take long for demigod blood fiend's cultivation to drop from demigod blood fiend to level 8 Abijna. How did this happen? My cultivation base? In the face of this sudden change, even with the mental state of the Shueisha Half-Zun, he could not help but feel alarmed. Immediately, the blood fiend demigod's face twitched. He looked at Emo Qingyun in horror and said, "You? Who exactly are you? What did you do to me just now?" He, Shueisha, had been cultivating for more than 1,000 years. He had never seen such a situation before. To him, this was simply too strange. "Brat, no matter how strange your methods are, you must die today." Die under the successive blows. Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's mental state was in a mess. He could no longer maintain his previous calmness and demeanor of an expert. Demonic Book of Blood Bath, body bathed in blood. As Half-Reverend Blood Fiend roared, the blood chi on his body soared into the sky, forming a blood chi flame outside his body. Under the impact of the blood chi flame, the surrounding ground was instantly corroded, turning into a blood-colored liquid. Seeing Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's methods, Emo Qingyun's expression turned grave. He sighed inwardly. A demigod expert is indeed different. Even if he is injured again and again, his strength is not something a peak transcendent realm expert can compare to. However, although Emo Qingyun was shocked by Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's strength, he did not reveal his panic. Immemorial Demon revealing Mirror Talisman True Body. Looking at Half-Reverend Blood Fiend before him, Emo Qingyun's lips curled up slightly. He raised his hand and took out a mirror-like talisman. Once the mirror-like talisman was taken out, it exploded with a shocking light and directly bombarded Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's body. Poochie. Faced with the attack of the light, the blood chi flame outside Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's body was instantly dispersed. Half-Reverend Blood Fiend returned to his original appearance, but his aura weakened slightly. Immemorial Demon revealing Mirror Talisman True Body, and also the legacy of the Weapon Talisman sect. Who exactly are you? Looking at the mirror talisman that was emitting a dazzling light above Emo Qingyun, Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's face twitched again, and fear rose in his heart. The scene before him made Emo Qingyun's image in his heart become even more mysterious. "After you die, you'll know who I am," Emo Qingyun said coldly in response to Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's question with a mocking smile. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Half-Reverend Blood Fiend became even more furious. His expression became even more ferocious as he said furiously, "Kid, you forced me to do this. Since that's the case, I will show you my most powerful technique." Superpower Treasure Elephant, Ancient Temple Blood Demon. Half-Reverend Blood Fiend roared angrily as he stared at Emo Qingyun with a sinister gaze. He then summoned his Superpower Treasure Elephant. Boom! Suddenly, a shocking sound reverberated in the air. Following that, a huge crack appeared in the air. The moment the crack appeared, two huge blood-red arms stretched out from it and tore the crack even wider. Not long after, a blood-red giant that was hundreds of meters tall walked out of the crack. This was Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's Superpower Treasure Elephant. It was ranked near the top 1,000 on the Superpower Treasure Elephant list. Ancient Temple Blood Demon. Kid, my Superpower Treasure Elephant is ranked in the top 1,000 on the Superpower Treasure Elephant list. Today, unless a venerable realm expert comes to save you, you will die without a doubt. Half-Reverend Blood Fiend's gloomy expression revealed a trace of complacency and pride after summoning his Superpower Treasure Elephant. However, having a Superpower Treasure Elephant ranked in the top 1,000 gave him the right to be proud. Is that so? Looking at the blood-red giant in front of him, a faint smile appeared on Emo Qingyun's face. There was a hint of mockery in his eyes as he said, "Comparing Superpower Treasure Elephants, I may not lose to you. Fortune Mainland, come out for me." Emo Qingyun did not waste any more words with Half-Reverend Blood Fiend and directly summoned the Fortune Mainland. Boom, boom, boom. The moment the Fortune Mainland appeared, it exploded with a towering pressure, shattering the remnants of the array formation. As the remnants of the array formation shattered, the situation between Emo Qingyun and Half-Reverend Blood Fiend was revealed without any concealment. Chapter 949. Half-Venerable Blood Fiend is injured. Did Emo Qingyun injure him? Seeing the scene before his eyes, Murong Qingyo's face suddenly revealed shock. He was not lightly shocked by the scene before his eyes. For a moment she found it hard to accept this reality. With Half-Venerable Blood Fiend's cultivation, he was actually injured by Emo Qingyun. Was there anything more ridiculous than this? The answer was obviously yes. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, when Murong Qingyo's face was filled with shock, the sounds of air being crushed and exploding entered her ears. Then, she saw a huge piece of land pressing down on the blood-colored giant. That's Emo Qingyun's divine ability treasure elephant? Murong Qingyo's heart trembled as she looked at the million-meter piece of land. She was dumbfounded on the spot. This was the first time she had seen such a terrifying divine ability treasure elephant. Bang, 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 facing the Fortune Mainland's crushing force, the blood-colored giant was like a piece of paper, instantly crumbling. Puff! As the divine ability treasure elephant was crushed, Half-Venerable Blood Fiend, who was connected to it, vomited a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. Then, Half-Venerable Blood Fiend's aura fluctuated, becoming unstable. It seemed like his divine ability precious elephant had been forcefully defeated, causing him great harm. It had already damaged his foundation. Half-Venerable Blood Fiend panicked when he saw his divine ability treasure elephant being crushed to dust by Emo Qingyun's divine ability treasure elephant. He exclaimed, What kind of divine ability treasure elephant is this? If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it even if someone beat him to death. How could there be such a monstrous divine ability treasure elephant in this world? Even the number 1 divine ability treasure elephant on the divine ability treasure elephant list didn't have such monstrous power. After you die, you will naturally know. Emo Qingyun didn't reply to Half-Venerable Blood Fiend's question. Instead, he uttered the same cold word. Fortune Mainland, suppress for me. Emo Qingyun controlled the Fortune Mainland and pressed down on Half-Venerable Blood Fiend in an overbearing manner. Half-Venerable Blood Fiend's face twitched when he saw the Fortune Mainland rapidly closing in on him. His expression was filled with fear. Even the ancient temple's blood devil's powerful physical body couldn't withstand the Fortune mainland's suppression, not to mention his flesh and blood body. Heavenly demon disintegration. Half-venerable blood fiend didn't dare to hesitate and executed the heavenly demon clan's innate ability. Bang! Half-venerable blood fiend's divine ability exploded, turning into sesame-sized blood droplets and disappear. Domain's gate. Half-venerable blood of half-venerable blood fiend's eyes, blood fiend's domain's blood fiend's body. Soon, Emo Qinyun found the blood fiend demigod hiding in this area. The artifact True Talisman True Body. A dazzling golden light burst forth from Fuzhen, the artifact of the Archean demon revealing mirror, and illuminated a spot inside the domain gate. Ah! Under the illumination of the ancient demon revealing mirror's artifact Talisman True Body, the blood fiend demigod, who was hiding under the sky demon disintegration, let out a miserable shriek. Next, half-exalted Shueisha, who was hiding in the domain gate, slowly regained his human form. Fortune mainland suppress. Seeing that the blood fiend demonic ancestor had regained his human form, Emo Qinyun controlled the Fortune mainland to attack him. Bang! Before the blood fiend half-step venerable could reform his body, he was smashed into pieces by the Fortune mainland, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Brat, this old man will remember today's enmity. In the future, this old man will definitely pay you back tenfold. When the blood fiend demi-venerate's body was blasted into a bloody mist, a bewitching scarlet light let out a venomous voice. Then, the bewitching red light disappeared in a flash, instantly fleeing hundreds of meters away. You won't have the chance. Looking at the fleeing red light, Emo Qinyun's expression was incomparably calm as he uttered a cold sentence. Then, a dazzling purple light flashed in Emo Qinyun's left eye, exuding a soul-stirring aura. Spiritual eye light. A purple ray of light shot out from Emo Qinyun's left eye, instantly hitting the fleeing red light. Poochie! Under the bombardment of the spiritual eye light, the bewitching red light was instantly pierced through, slowly fading and dissipating. Brat, just wait for the heavenly soul devil clan's endless revenge. When the bewitching red light dissipated, another venomous voice entered Emo Qinyun's ears. However, Emo Qinyun did not pay any attention to his words. He turned around and walked towards Murong Qinyu. Half-exalted Shueisha was dead. Under Emo Qinyun's attack, the blood fiend demi-venerate was completely annihilated. Even his divine soul did not have the chance to escape. Looking at the scene before her, Murong Qinyu was instantly shocked. She felt disbelief in her heart for a long time. She was truly unable to imagine that in a short few months, Emo Qinyun's strength had actually risen to such an extent. After a while, Emo Qinyun arrived in front of Murong Qinyu. He faintly smiled and said to her, "Miss Murong, the blood fiend demi-venerate is already dead. Right now, the two of us are safe. We can leave the life and death nirvana reincarnation array. The blood fiend demi-venerate is dead." Hearing Emo Qinyun's words, Murong Qinyu's expression was slightly stunned. Her gaze became somewhat perplexed as she muttered to herself, "That's right. The blood fiend demi-venerate is already dead. We're already safe. We're about to leave this place." At this moment, in Murong Qinyu's heart, she couldn't help but feel a wave of reluctance and heartache. She was very clear that once they left this place, it also meant that she would have to separate from Emo Qinyun. Subsequently, a feeling of bewilderment and not knowing what to do slowly rose in Murong Qinyu's heart. After leaving the life and death nirvana reincarnation array, would she continue to be with Emo Qinyun? Or would she continue to fulfill her wish? For a moment, Murong Qinyu's heart became very complicated. She entered a state of hesitation. With regards to Murong Qinyu's thoughts, Emo Qinyun naturally didn't know. He said to Murong Qinyu with a faint smile, "Miss Murong, let's go." "Okay." Hearing Emo Qinyun's words, Murong Qinyu instinctively nodded. The corners of her eyes couldn't help but become moist. Just a moment ago, she made a decision in her heart. She decided to continue to fulfill her wish. Subsequently, Murong Chinyu silently followed Mo Chinyun out of the life and death nirvana reincarnation array. After a while, Mo Chinyun and Murong Chinyu exited the life and death nirvana reincarnation array and arrived in front of the entrance of the canyon. Arriving outside the life and death nirvana reincarnation array, Mo Chinyun revealed a brilliant smile and said to Murong Chinyu with a faint smile, "Miss Murong, since the Blood Fiend Demi-Venerate is already dead, I'll accompany you to the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping array and refine the blood in the blood pool." "Accompany me to the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping array?" Hearing Mo Chingyun's words, Murong Chinyo's expression was slightly stunned. Subsequently, she revealed a brilliant smile and said, "Okay, let's go quickly." Chapter 950. After a short while, Mo Chinyun and Murong Chinyu arrived outside of the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation. "Miss Murong, please wait for a moment. I will break this Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation." Standing outside of the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation, Mo Chinyun faintly smiled at Murong Chinyu and instructed her. "Okay." Murong Chinyu nodded her head and silently walked to the side, waiting for Mo Chinyun to break the formation. The Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation was researched by the Blood Fiend Temple. It was a formation specifically used to deal with the Phoenix clan. It could be considered as an extreme formation. Therefore, it was different from ordinary formations. Although it was effective against the Phoenix clan, it was ineffective against other clans. It was almost negligible. Moreover, because it was an extreme formation, its stability wasn't very strong. It could be easily broken by a powerful formation master. After Mo Chinyun observed the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation, he had a clear understanding of the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation in front of him. The Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation in front of him wasn't a complete formation. It was only activated by a formation plate. As a result, its stability was even more unbearable. It was only slightly better than a formation drawn by raising one's hand. From this, it could be seen that the Blood Fiend demigod didn't understand formations. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used a formation plate to set up a formation. Under normal circumstances, formation plates were drawn by powerful formation masters and given to those who didn't understand formations to defend themselves. Of course, the formation plates of the 9 temples were not within the scope of these formation plates. Of course, although the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation was weak, it was more than enough to deal with Murong Chinyu. After knowing the situation of the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation, Mo Chinyun no longer hesitated and began to break the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation. Following which, strange hand seals quickly condensed in Mo Chinyun's hands and flew to different corners of the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation. As each strange hand seal flew to a different corner of the formation, the Blood Fiend Phoenix trapping formation's power weakened a little. About an hour later, when Mo Chinyun executed the last hand seal, the glow of the bloody evil phoenix trapping formation instantly disappeared and became dim. "Rise." Seeing this, Mo Chinyun raised his hand and made a grabbing motion, blasting out several profound ice palms with astonishing momentum towards the formation's foundation. Then, several light pillars carved with strange runes were pulled out from the ground by Mo Chinyun. 500 pounds! As these light pillars carved with strange symbols were forcefully pulled out from the ground by Mo Chinyun, the Blood Evil Phoenix trapping array instantly collapsed. The Blood Fiend Phoenix imprisoning formation was broken. After breaking the Blood Evil Phoenix imprisoning formation, Mo Chinyun didn't let Murong Chinyu refine the blood pool immediately. Instead, he took out various refining materials and arranged them. Seeing Mo Chinyun's actions, Murong Chinyu's heart was suddenly moved. She knew what Mo Chinyun was planning to do. Emo Qinyun was planning to arrange a formation to help her refine the blood pool better. Several hours later, Emo Qinyun, with a somewhat tired expression, gently smiled at Murong Qinyu and said softly, "Miss Murong, I have arranged a 5 elements gathering formation and a time-shifting formation around the blood pool. It should be of some help to you in refining the blood pool." "Thank you." Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Murong Qinyo's face revealed an excited expression. Her voice was somewhat choked with emotions as she thanked him. Following this period of time with Emo Qinyun, she could feel that Emo Qingyun's concern for her was meticulous. The only time he didn't give in to her was when they were fighting over the Phoenix Blood Nirvana fruit. It seemed that the Phoenix Blood Nirvana fruit was really important to Emo Qinyun. "In the following days, you can be at ease and refine the blood pool here. I will always be guarding outside." In response to Murong Qinyo's gratitude, Emo Qinyun faintly smiled at her and began to sit cross-legged at the side. Seeing Emo Qinyun's actions, Murong Qinyu didn't say anything else. She directly walked into the blood pool and began to refine the blood in the blood pool. In the following days, Emo Qinyun kept guarding outside the blood pool, protecting Murong Qinyu who was in the blood pool. During this period, although there were many demonic beasts that came to cause trouble, they were all killed by Emo Qinyun. There was no time in the mountains. Time always passed quickly during cultivation. In a blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Under Murong Qinyo's continuous refining, the energy contained in the blood pool was finally completely refined by her. After refining the blood, the benefits that Murong Qinyu obtained were undoubtedly very astonishing. At this moment, the aura that Murong Qinyu emitted had already reached the limit of the Heavenly Dipper realm. She was only 1 step away from the Divine realm. It seems that Miss Murong is preparing to attack the Divine realm. Seeing that Murong Qinyu who was in the blood pool still didn't show any signs of stopping her cultivation, Emo Qinyun immediately guessed her plan. Sure enough, suddenly, an astonishing amount of energy frantically converged towards the blood pool. Under the convergence of these energy, the aura on Murong Qinyo's body couldn't help but rise again. A few hours later, the aura on Murong Qinyo's body finally reached a limit and couldn't continue to rise. Then, a picture scroll with a 10-winged black phoenix flew out from Murong Qinyo's body. This was Murong Qinyo's Heavenly Dipper picture, the 10-winged dark phoenix picture. After the 10-winged dark phoenix picture flew out, it slowly grew bigger and solidified little by little. Murong Qinyu began to condense the divine treasure picture. Whoosh! A few days later, a phoenix cry came out from the blood pool. Murong Qinyo's divine treasure picture was successfully condensed. However, at this time, a strange mark flashed between Murong Qinyo's eyebrows, bursting with an aura that made people's heart tremble. This mark, looking at the mark between Murong Qinyo's eyebrows, Emo Qinyun frowned. There seemed to be a familiar feeling. After pondering for a while, Emo Qinyun's expression suddenly changed. He thought that he had seen it before. He secretly said, "There seems to be such a mark between Zi Shu's eyebrows. Could it be that Murong Qinyu and Zi Shu are both reincarnated people?" At this moment, a strong doubt arose in Emo Qinyun's heart. At this moment, when Emo Qinyun's heart was filled with doubt, Murong Qinyo's face in the blood pool showed confusion, pain, reluctance and other complicated expressions. A few hours later, Murong Qinyu stopped cultivating, got up and walked out of the blood pool. He looked at Emo Qinyun with a complicated gaze. After looking at Emo Qinyun for a moment, Murong Qinyu seemed to have made a decision in his heart. He looked at Emo Qinyun and said in a deep voice, "Qinyun, thank you. What do you plan to do next?" "I plan to make a trip to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. There, I have some very important things to do." Emo Qinyun did not think much about Murong Qinyo's question and answered without hiding anything. "So it's like this." Hearing Emo Qinyun's answer, Murong Qinyu was somewhat disappointed and lost. He powerlessly nodded and said, "I plan to go to the Wasteland continent." There is something very important to me there. Chapter 951. When do you plan to go to the wasteland continent? After a moment, Emo Chingyun took the lead to break the silence. He looked at Murong Chinyu and smiled faintly. I'll leave immediately. Murong Chinyo's eyes flashed with a trace of struggle. In the end, she still made a decision and replied with a slightly reluctant tone. I'll send you back to the Demon Road. Seeing Murong Chinyo's decision, Emo Chingyun's face also showed reluctance, and he said a heavy sentence. He couldn't deny that after getting along with Murong Chinyu for this period of time, he really did have feelings for her. No need. Even if you send me off for 1,000 miles, in the end, we still have to part. I'll go back by myself. Murong Chinyu shook her head and refused Emo Chingyun's good intentions. She reluctantly looked at Emo Chingyun. Murong Chinyu turned around and left Emo Chingyun a beautiful back view. She said, I'm leaving. Wait a moment. Emo Chingyun quickly called out to Murong Chinyu. With a nervous expression, he quickly asked, How can I find you in the future? Hearing Emo Chingyun's words, Murong Chinyu stopped. She took out a black feather from her bosom and handed it to Emo Chingyun. She said, This is one of my life feather wings. Carry it on your body and you'll be able to sense my existence. Looking at the feather wings that Murong Chinyu handed over, Emo Chingyun's expression became a bit more serious. He promised, After I've dealt with the matters here, I'll definitely go to the Tianhun continent to find you. And Murong Chinyu smiled sweetly. Suddenly, her face showed a trace of craftiness. She asked with a slightly red face, Do you have wine on you? Yes. Can you give me some? Yes. Thank you. Murong Chinyu took the jug of wine and directly opened it. She lightly took a sip. When the wine entered her mouth, Murong Chinyu's beautiful eyebrows slightly wrinkled, as if she was enduring the spiciness of the wine. Seeing Murong Chinyu's expression, Emo Chinyun awkwardly smiled and responded, I like spicy strong wine. Murong Chinyu didn't answer Emo Chinyun's words. She only walked towards Emo Chinyun with a slightly red face. Arriving in front of Emo Chinyun, Murong Chinyu's eyes were somewhat hazy. There was a glimmer of light rotating in his eyes. Suddenly, Murong Chinyu gently raised her arm and wrapped it around Emo Chinyun's neck. She closed her eyes and slightly raised her toes. Her pink lips met Emo Chinyun's lip. Seeing Murong Chinyu's action, Emo Chinyun was startled, and his mind suddenly went blank. He really didn't expect that Murong Chinyu make such a bold move. Very quickly, a spicy feeling came from Murong Chinyu's mouth. Along with this spicy feeling, Murong Chinyu, who was in front of him, quickly loosened his arms. With a shy expression, he turned his head and stuffed the wine pot into Emo Chinyun's hand. He said, In the future, when you drink, remember to think of me. My taste is the same as this wine. After Murong Chinyu finished speaking, her figure flashed and disappeared in front of Emo Chinyun's eyes. Looking at Murong Chinyu, who disappeared in an instant, Emo Chinyun's heart couldn't calm down for a long time. A very complicated feeling rose in his heart. That feeling was like excitement, like shock, like joy, like reluctance, but also a bit of heartache. Don't worry, after I've dealt with the matters of the Heavenly Spirit continent, I'll definitely go to the Wasteland continent to find you. Emo Chinyun clenched his fist. With a serious expression, he made a decision in his heart. Then, Emo Chinyun no longer hesitated. He raised his hand and took out the sacred beast cauldron from his Chinkuan pouch. Since I've already found the Phoenix Blood Nirvana fruit, it's time to refine the 9 transformation body sculpting pill. After Emo Chinyun thought about it, he no longer hesitated and immediately started refining the 9 transformation body sculpting pill. Then, one by one, the alchemy materials were thrown into the sacred beast cauldron by Emo Chinyun and he started refining the pill. One day later, a rich pill fragrance spread out from the sacred beast cauldron. At the same time, a strange scene flew out from the sacred beast cauldron and slowly condensed in the air. Seeing that the pill fragrance had condensed, Mo Qingyun immediately formed hand seals with both of his hands and gathered the pill fragrance into the pill. After doing all this, Mo Qingyun let the 9 transformation body sculpting pill go through a few pill tribulations. Then, he carefully stored it in a jade bottle. Seeing that the 9 transformation body sculpting pill was successfully refined, Mo Qingyun pointed at his forehead and moved Qiu Yi, who was cultivating in the Soul Palace, out. After Qiu Yi came out of the Soul Palace, Missouri Qingyun realized that her body was much more solid than before. It seemed that during this period of time, she had been cultivating in the Soul Palace and her soul had become much more stable. Disciple Qiu Yi greets Master. Qiu Yi had a respectful look on her face as she bowed to Mo Qingyun. No need for formalities. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly and waved his hand. He took out a jade bottle from his Qinkuan bag and handed it to Qiu Yi. Little Yi, this contains the 9 transformation body sculpting pill. Refine it to refine your body. 9 transformation body sculpting pill. Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Qiu Yi's body suddenly trembled. She revealed an emotional expression and knelt to Mo Qingyun again. Disciple Qiu Yi thanks Master for giving me a new lease of life. Get up quickly. There's no need for such polite words between you and me. Seeing Qiu Yi's actions, Mo Qingyun revealed a loving expression. He waved his hand at Qiu Yi and said, "Now, I'll send you to a place to cultivate. If you feel a tearing force, don't resist it." "Yes." Qiu Yi nodded. Then, Mo Qingyun controlled the 5-directional small pagoda and sent Qiu Yi into it. Then, Mo Qingyun gave Qiu Yi some instructions before leaving the 5-directional small pagoda. After leaving the 5-directional small pagoda, Mo Qingyun didn't stay any longer and began his journey to the Mist Pond sect. I wonder if sect leader Chen and the others have moved the Mist Pond sect out of Mingfeng mountain range. On the way to the Mist Pond sect, Mo Qingyun thought to himself. One day later, Mo Qingyun finally arrived at the Mist Pond sect's mountain gate under his full-speed travel. At this moment, the Mist Pond sect's mountain gate was filled with people. All of them had excited expressions as they chatted with each other. Did something big happen in the Mist Pond sect? After seeing this scene, Mo Qingyun's expression changed slightly. He quickly flew towards the Mist Pond sect. Mo Qingyun. Look, it's Mo Qingyun. Wow, it really is Pill Emperor Qingyun. He's still as handsome as ever. Wow. So he's Pill Emperor Qingyun. He really is handsome. Luckily, I joined the Mist Pond sect. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see him. Seeing Mo Qingyun quickly fly towards them, the Mist Pond sect's disciples were all excited. They looked at Mo Qingyun with admiration. Mo Qingyun didn't pay too much attention to the actions of the Mist Pond sect's disciples. He directly walked towards the Mist Pond sect's mountain gate. Before long, Mo Qingyun found Song Luo and the others. He asked with a curious expression, "Song Luo, what's happened in the Mist Pond sect? Why are all the disciples outside the sect gate?" Disciple greets Master. Seeing Mo Qingyun appear, the expressions of Song Luo and the others all changed. They respectfully bowed towards Mo Qingyun and said, "Master, recently, Sovereign Su Chao announced to the world that the Heavenly Pool Mountain will reopen in 3 months. We're preparing to go and congratulate him." "I see." Chapter 952. From Mo Qingyun's point of view, Song Luo and the rest were probably trying to take advantage of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain's reconstruction to become a subordinate force of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. "Master, we will be heading to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain next. What are your plans?" After Song Luo shared his thoughts, he revealed an expectant expression and asked Mo Qingyun about his plans. From his expression, one could tell that he hoped that Mo Qingyun would travel with them. From his point of view, if Emo Qingyun traveled with them, their chances of returning to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain would increase by many-fold. Coincidentally, I'm also going to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. I'll go with you. In response to Song Luo's question, Emo Qingyun pondered for a moment before agreeing to travel with Song Luo and the rest. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Song Luo and the rest were overjoyed and excited. After a while, Emo Qingyun and the rest chatted for a while before setting off for the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. On the way to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain, Song Luo arranged a demonic beast carriage for Emo Qingyun to rest in alone. Emo Qingyun was happy to see Song Luo and the rest's actions. This way, he could cultivate in peace. While no one was paying attention, Emo Qingyun replaced himself with his clone and sat in the demonic beast carriage to cultivate. The clone's cultivation was different from his. Once his cultivation was at the same level as his original body, he could no longer increase his cultivation. Not long after Emo Qingyun's cultivation broke through to the transcendent realm, his clone's cultivation also broke through to the transcendent realm. As such, it was meaningless for him to continue cultivating. Emo Qingyun entered the 5-directional small pagoda and checked on Qiu Ye's condition. Then, he entered the second floor of the 5-directional small pagoda and began cultivating. To him, the most important thing now was to make the best use of his time to increase his cultivation. Otherwise, once the demon clan invaded, how could he protect his loved ones? Time passed by slowly. 2 months later, with the help of the 9 transformation body shaping elixir, Qiu Ye's body was finally reconstructed. After her body was reconstructed successfully, Qiu Yi immediately sent a voice transmission to Emo Qingyun and shared this pleasant news with him. What surprised Emo Qingyun was that the body that Qiu Yi had reconstructed was actually the Nirvana Phoenix body, one of the top 100 special constitutions among the 3,000. Although the Nirvana Phoenix physique was only ranked in the top 100 among the 3,000 unique physiques, its potential was indeed extremely great. If Qiu Yi was able to cultivate the Nirvana Phoenix physique to the limit and successfully achieve Nirvana rebirth, then she would have the opportunity to awaken the Phoenix bloodline. Of course, the matter of rebirth was too far away. Presently, to Qiu Yi, being able to reconstruct the Phoenix physique of rebirth was an extremely good thing. With the support of this powerful physique, Qiu Ye's current strength was much stronger than before. With her current cultivation at level 5 of the Divine Power Realm, even if she encountered an expert at level 7 of the Divine Power Realm, she would still be able to fight. Seeing that Qiu Ye's body had been successfully reconstructed, Emo Qingyun gave her some pointers before returning to his cultivation. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Original body, we have reached the sacred Sky Pool Mountain. At this moment, Emo Qingyun, who was in the midst of cultivation, suddenly opened his eyes after receiving the message from his incarnation. We have reached the sacred Sky Pool Mountain so quickly. Emo Qingyun's expression changed slightly as a look of surprise flashed across his face. He sighed inwardly. Time really flies. After recovering from his surprise, Emo Qingyun sensed his own cultivation and revealed a look of regret. He said, "The peak of the late-stage 3rd level of the Divine Power Realm. It is a pity that I did not directly enter the 4th level of the Divine Power Realm." At this moment, if other people heard Emo Qingyun's words, they would definitely be so shocked that they would want to commit suicide. In just 3 months, his cultivation had risen from the peak of the 1st level of the Divine Power Realm to the peak of the 3rd level of the Divine Power Realm. It was hard to accept that Emo Qingyun was actually still dissatisfied with such an insane cultivation speed. Of course, from this, it could be seen that the cultivation speed of those who possessed the 5 elements spiritual body was shockingly fast. One must know that Emo Qingyun's current cultivation was in the Divine Power Realm, not the body tempering realm that had just entered the martial Tao. Many people in the divine power realm might not be able to break through to the next level even after cultivating for more than 10 years. In comparison, Emo Qingyun's terrifying cultivation speed immediately became obvious. During this period of time, apart from Emo Qingyun's shocking cultivation gains, Qiu Ye's cultivation gains were also impressive. After a month of cultivation and familiarizing herself with her new body, Qiu Ye's current cultivation had already reached the peak of the 5th level of the divine power realm. Although her cultivation speed could not be compared to Emo Qingyun's, it was still extremely shocking. After checking his cultivation progress, Emo Qingyun did not hesitate any longer and left the 5-directional small pagoda. After exiting the 5-directional small pagoda, Emo Qingyun put his clone into the 5-directional small pagoda and swapped identities with him. At this moment, when Emo Qingyun switched identities with his avatar, he also moved Qiu Yi out of the 5 directions pagoda. Qiu Yi was wearing a green dress and her hair was tied up with a blue hairpin. She had a pair of moon-shaped earrings on her ears that flickered with a faint silver light when she moved. This celestial attire, coupled with Qiu Ye's exquisite appearance, instantly revealed a celestial and quiet temperament. "Greetings, Master." Qiu Yi had a sweet smile on her face as she bowed to Emo Qingyun. She gave off a very gentle feeling. "No need for formalities." Emo Qingyun waved his hand with a faint smile in response to Qiu Ye's actions. He said in a deep voice, "Now that Xuchao's cultivation has broken through to the sovereign realm, the sacred sky pool mountain might be reopened in the next few days. Come with me for a walk." Eldest senior brother's cultivation has broken through to the sovereign realm? Qiu Yi was pleasantly surprised when she heard Emo Qingyun's words. She was extremely excited. In her opinion, as long as Emo Qingyun's cultivation recovered and with Supreme Xuchao's help, the sacred sky pool mountain would be able to regain its former glory very quickly. Not only that, but when the sacred sky pool mountain had 2 sovereigns, it might not be impossible for them to seek revenge on Li He, Yi Feiyang, and Yang Yunfan. Emo Qingyun nodded with a faint smile in response to Qiu Ye's surprised reaction. Suddenly, his expression turned serious as he instructed, "Little Yi, I can't let anyone know my identity for now. From now on you can call me Mr. Emo, yes, Mr. Emo. I'll do as you say." Qiu Yi smiled playfully when she heard Emo Qingyun's words and winked at Emo Qingyun. Perhaps it was because her body had been reconstructed and she was together with Emo Qingyun again, but Qiu Yi was in an extremely good mood right now. "Alright, let's go out. Don't let the people outside wait too long." Chapter 953. Whoosh. The curtains of the beast carriage were pulled open and Emo Qingyun and Qiu Yi walked out towards Song Luo and the others. "Greetings, Master. We have arrived at the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain." Song Luo and the others bowed respectfully to Emo Qingyun when they saw Emo Qingyun approaching. "Master." Qiu Yi was surprised as she glanced at Song Luo and the others. She was surprised by how they addressed Emo Qingyun. Qiu Yi could tell that Song Luo and the others weren't very talented. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have reached Emo Qingyun's standards. Emo Qingyun saw the doubt in Qiu Ye's heart and smiled faintly. He explained to Qiu Yi, "Song Luo and the others are former disciples of the Misty Pool sect. I met them in the Mingfeng mountain range and taught them some alchemy skills. Out of respect for me, they called me Master." "So that's how it is." After Emo Qingyun's explanation, Qiu Yi nodded her head in understanding. She understood the relationship between Song Luo and the others and Emo Qingyun. At the same time, Qiu Yi admired the luck of Song Luo and the others. Unknowingly, he had obtained Emo Qingyun's recognition and guidance. This was really a stroke of good luck. If they knew that Emo Qingyun was once the owner of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain and the youngest pill venerate in the Tianhan continent, they would be very excited. They would probably be extremely excited to receive personal guidance from venerated pill. However, since Emo Qingyun had told them beforehand, Qiu Yi naturally wouldn't reveal Emo Qingyun's identity. Master, who is this lady? Seeing Qiu Yi beside Emo Qingyun, Song Luo and the others were curious and asked about Qiu Ye's identity. They clearly remembered that when Emo Qingyun entered the beast carriage, he didn't bring a lady with him. But now, a girl who was as beautiful as a fairy had come out of the demonic beast carriage with Emo Qingyun. This kind of thing was really too thought-provoking. Seeing the expressions of Song Luo and the others, Emo Qingyun knew that they had misunderstood. He explained, Miss Qiu Yi is an old acquaintance of mine. We met coincidentally on the way here. She was also heading to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain, so I called her along. Once Emo Qingyun's words left his mouth, the expressions of Song Luo and the rest became even stranger. So it turned out to be an old flame. At this moment, in the hearts of Song Luo and the others, they immediately determined the relationship between Emo Qingyun and Emo Qingyun. Qiu Yi couldn't help but reveal a helpless expression when he saw that. He sighed inside, Master, your talent in both cultivation and alchemy can be said to be unparalleled, but your EQ is just too low. I didn't expect you to still be like this after reincarnating. Looks like the heavens are very fair. Qiu Yi revealed a sly smile and deliberately looked at Emo Qingyun with a flirtatious gaze. Seeing Qiu Ye's expression, Song Luo and the rest instantly understood. The way they looked at Emo Qingyun changed. However, due to Emo Qingyun's identity, they didn't dare to say it out loud. After all, their master was still young. Who wouldn't be full of energy when they were young? At that moment, such a thought emerged in the hearts of Song Luo and the others. Emo Qingyun naturally didn't know what Song Luo and the rest were thinking. Otherwise, he would be crying without tears. After that, Emo Qingyun chatted with Song Luo and the rest for a while before entering the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. The Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain was extremely large. It was millions of square kilometers and was divided into two regions, the inner region and the outer region. Some of the factions that relied on the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain would take root in the outer region. According to the strength of the faction, they would establish their factions in different regions. The stronger the faction, the closer the location of the faction would be to the inner region of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. Hence, the cultivation environment of the faction would be better. On the other hand, it was the same. As for the inner region, it was naturally where the faction of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain was located. It was where the Heavenly Pool Palace used to be. On the path to the inner region of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain, Emo Qingyun and the rest saw many people from other factions. Among these factions, most of them were factions that relied on the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain in the past. Now, they were here to submit to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain again. As for the other factions, although they were here to congratulate, their motives were unknown. As the Fog Pool sect was here with their entire faction, their scale was extremely large. They attracted the attention of many factions along the way. Look at that faction. They brought so many disciples to congratulate us. Are they here to take advantage of the rich? Yes, it's just like a banquet held by an ordinary family. Some poor families like to bring their sons and daughters to have a good meal. In my opinion, these people probably haven't eaten for half a year. Now that the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain has reopened, they want to have a good meal at the banquet. Hey! Those people seem to be from the Fog Pool sect, one of the 10 great spirit pool sects of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. That seems to be the case. I didn't expect the Fog Pool sect to be so shabby. I think they should change their name to the Shabby sect. In an instant, all kinds of mocking words came from the surrounding factions. The Fog Pool sect's disciples were immediately displeased by these people's mocking words. They wanted to argue with them. After all, they were all young people. It was hard for them to not be impatient. Naturally, they couldn't allow others to humiliate their sect. Everyone, don't be angry. Let's enter the inner region of the heavenly pool sacred mountain first. Seeing the actions of Wang Quan and the other disciples, Song Luo showed a serious expression and stopped them. Song Luo knew very well that although these people's words were unpleasant, they were undoubtedly the truth. Moreover, with the fog pool sect's current strength, they didn't know if they would become enemies with other factions. Hearing Song Luo's words, the fog pool sect's disciples were all indignant. Their faces were filled with unwillingness. Roar as Mo Qingyun and the rest advanced, deafening beast roars suddenly entered their ears. Thump, thump, thump. Following this, the ground started to shake. Huge stomping sounds came from the ground. At the source of the stomping sounds, a gray, foggy sandstorm was set off. It was approaching at a shocking speed. A monster rampage. Seeing this scene, the expressions of Song Luo and the rest immediately became serious. A strong sense of worry rose in their hearts. Judging from the momentum of this monster wave, there were many monster beasts with high cultivation. This was definitely not something the fog pool sect's disciples could resist. While Song Luo and the rest were filled with fear, the expressions of the people from the other factions also became serious. Of course, there were also some powerful factions. They all stood in the air and revealed arrogant expressions. Subdued beasts. Looking at the restless monster wave in front of them, Mo Qingyun immediately understood the reason. Someone was secretly controlling these monster beasts. Chapter 954. It seems like Su Chao will encounter a lot of obstacles if he wants to rebuild the heavenly pool sacred mountain. Looking at the scene before him, Mo Qingyun could guess that Li He and the other two would not allow the heavenly pool sacred mountain to be rebuilt. However, Mo Qingyun was not worried about this. Although Li He and the other two would make things difficult for the heavenly pool sacred mountain's reconstruction, it would only be a little more troublesome. Now that the heavenly pool sacred mountain had a venerable realm expert overseeing it, even if Li He and the other two wanted to cause trouble, they would have some scruples. After all, the anger of a venerable realm expert was extremely terrifying. If they angered Supreme Su Chao, he would pay a visit to their 3 sacred mountains, and their 3 sacred mountains would suffer heavy losses. This was not something Li He and the other two wanted to see. Thus, they did not dare to go overboard. Song Luo, you guys escort the Mist Pool sect's disciples and hide in the surrounding forest. Qiu Yi and I will cover your retreat. Looking at the rapidly approaching demonic beast tide, Mo Qingyun's expression turned solemn. He instructed Song Luo, then turned to Qiu Yi. Qiu Yi, you and I will cover their retreat and kill the demonic beasts that are approaching. All right. Qiu Yi nodded and took out the fallen leaf sword. Subsequently, Song Luo escorted the Mist Pool sect's disciples and retreated into the surrounding forest, using the dense forest as cover to escape. While Song Luo and the others were retreating, Mo Qingyun took out the colorless sword from his cosmos sack and killed the demonic beasts that were attacking the Mist Pool sect's disciples. The strongest among these demonic beasts were merely 7th, 8th, and 9th stage divine ability realm. Among them, there were less than 10 9th stage divine ability realm demonic beasts. With Mo Qingyun's current strength, killing these demonic beasts was a piece of cake. If it wasn't for the fact that he did not want to expose the Fortune mainland, Mo Qingyun would have controlled the Fortune mainland to smash down and kill more than half of these demonic beasts. Puchi, in the face of Mo Qingyun's powerful massacre, the demonic beasts that were closing in on the Fog Pool sect did not have the slightest ability to resist. They were all killed by Mo Qingyun's sword. Under the escort of Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi, Song Luo and the others quickly broke away from the beast tide and escaped from danger. Are any of the disciples injured? After killing the pursuing demonic beasts, Mo Qingyun walked up to Song Luo and asked about the situation of the Mist Pool sect disciples. Replying to Master, except for a few disciples who suffered some minor injuries, the rest of the disciples are fine. Song Luo had a respectful expression as he answered Mo Qingyun's question. With a serious expression, he asked, "Master, what should we do next?" Hearing Song Luo's question, Emo Qingyun's gaze swept over the group of Mist Pool sect disciples and said solemnly, "Demonic beasts are running rampant in the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain now. Bringing so many disciples to participate in the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain's reconstruction ceremony will indeed bring a lot of trouble. It seems like we need to find a place to settle them down." Song Luo and the others nodded in agreement with Emo Qingyun's words. However, they soon revealed a troubled expression as they said, "Master, our Mist Pool sect has left the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain for several decades. I'm afraid it will be difficult to find a place to settle them down in a short period of time." "You don't need to worry about this. I have already thought of a place to settle them down. You just need to follow me." After comforting Song Luo and the others, Emo Qingyun did not say anything else and led the way. The place that Emo Qingyun was referring to was naturally the current Qingyun Palace's mountain entrance. After arriving at the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain, he had secretly communicated with Qi Lian and the others. Due to Emo Qingyun's instructions, the Qingyun Palace's mountain entrance was built in a more secluded location. As a result, the location where the Iron Wing and the others built the Qingyun Palace's mountain entrance was rather far from the inner area of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. It just happened to be close to where Emo Qingyun was currently. Song Luo and the others were curious as they looked at Emo Qingyun leading the way. They had no idea where Emo Qingyun was taking them. Several hours later, majestic mansions and palaces appeared before Song Luo and the others, immediately making them feel like they were looking up at them. Compared to the sect before them, their Mist Pool sect's mountain entrance was just too small. "I never thought that Qi Lian and the others would build the Qingyun Palace so majestic." Looking at the Qingyun Palace in front of him, Emo Qingyun revealed a satisfied smile. He said to Song Luo and the others behind him, "Let's go in." With that, Emo Qingyun walked forward and led Song Luo and the others into the Qingyun Palace. A moment later, when Emo Qingyun arrived at the entrance of the Qingyun Palace, Qi Lian and the others were already waiting there. "Greetings, young lord." Seeing Emo Qingyun approaching, Qi Lian and the others revealed respectful expressions as they bowed to Emo Qingyun. "Young lord?" Hearing how Qi Lian and the others addressed Emo Qingyun, Song Luo and the others revealed shocked expressions. They were even more curious about Emo Qingyun's identity. Right now, they could clearly sense that Qi Lian and the others' cultivations were all above the advanced god power level. In particular, Qi Lian and the Iron Wing's auras were even more terrifying. When they stood before Qi Lian and the others, it was like they were standing before a tall mountain. This feeling was only slightly better than when they faced a sovereign. Didn't this mean that Qi Lian and the others' cultivations had reached the quasi-exalt level? 2 quasi-exalts. When they guessed Qi Lian and the Iron Wing's cultivations, Song Luo and the others' hearts trembled. They felt even more reverence for Emo Qingyun in their hearts. One could imagine how powerful a person who possessed the strength of 2 quasi-exalts was. This was an existence that was second only to the 9 divine mountains. Emo Qingyun didn't care about what Song Luo and the others thought. He directly instructed Qi Lian, "Qi Lian, go find some residences and let Song Luo and the others settle their disciples here." "Yes, young lord." Qi Lian nodded and made an inviting gesture to Song Luo and the others. He said, "Everyone, please follow me." Song Luo and the others hesitated when they saw Qi Lian's actions. They looked at Emo Qingyun, not knowing what to do. There was nothing they could do. Qi Lian and the others' formation was just too great. They were immediately frightened. Emo Qingyun faintly smiled at Song Luo and the others when he saw their reactions. He said, "Song Luo, just follow Qi Lian. He'll arrange residences for you later. As for the disciples, you can make the arrangements yourselves." "Yes, master." Song Luo and the others didn't think too much when they heard Emo Qingyun's words. They nodded at Emo Qingyun. "Master?" Qi Lian and the others were stunned when they heard how Song Luo addressed Emo Qingyun. They were surprised by the relationship between Emo Qingyun and Song Luo. However, since Emo Qingyun didn't say anything, they didn't ask. Afterwards, Qi Lian led Song Luo and the others away and arranged residences for the disciples of the Mist Pool sect. Iron Wing, how has Qingyun Palace been recently? Emo Qingyun turned to the Iron Wing when he saw Song Luo and the others leave. He asked about Qingyun Palace. Previously, when we were building the Azure Cloud Palace, some of the surrounding sects wanted to take over the Azure Cloud Palace by force. However, with the help of Steward Qi and I, we've completely flattened them. Now, within a radius of 10,000 miles, only our Azure Cloud Palace reigns supreme. Chapter 955. A moment later, after the Iron Wing's explanation, Emo Qingyun had a general understanding of the situation in the Qingyun Palace. Now, the Iron Wing, Qi Lian, and He Xian's cultivation had all reached the level of half-venerable and were steadily advancing towards the supreme venerable realm. Senior He Xian's cultivation has already reached the level of half-venerable? Hearing Tai Yi's words, Emo Qingyun couldn't help but be startled. A strong sense of surprise rose in his heart. He clearly remembered that when he left Jianzhou, He Xian's cultivation was only at divine power level 6. Now, only half a year had passed, and He Xian's cultivation had leaped from divine power level 6 to the level of half-venerable. This cultivation speed was truly frightening. However, after thinking about He Xian's background, Emo Qingyun's heart was at ease. He Xian, Savage Beast, Iron Wing, and the 9 temples were able to become the star generals of his Heavenly Soul Demon Clan's chief master. This was enough to prove that they were not ordinary. In this way, it was understandable that He Xian's cultivation speed could be so fast. In addition to He Xian and the others' shocking cultivation speed, Sha Yunjin and the others' cultivation speed was also very shocking. Now that Sha Yunjin and Rong Ho's cultivation had reached the late stage of divine power level 9, it was only a matter of time before they broke through to the peak of divine power level 9. As for Savage Beast, Feng Moyun, Ling Bo, and Ling Rao, with the help of sufficient pills and the time shift formation, their cultivation had all reached the high level of divine power level. As for Ling Kai and the others, their cultivation had also increased to varying degrees and were many times stronger than before. Of course, what surprised Emo Qingyun the most was the speed of the Eye Demon's cultivation. Now, the number of divine power level Eye Demons had reached the level of more than 100,000. Among them, there were tens of thousands of Eye Demons who had reached the mid-level of divine power level, and hundreds of them had reached the high level of divine power level. In this way, the number of divine power level experts that a supreme sect had couldn't compare to the Qingyun Palace. If the Qingyun Palace could produce a supreme venerable, then the Qingyun Palace would immediately become the strongest faction in the continent. After learning about the situation of the Azure Cloud Palace, a bright smile appeared on Emo Qingyun's face. He could not help but feel a little excited. From the looks of it, he was one big step closer to his path of revenge. Once he possessed the strength to kill a supreme being, he would be able to take revenge on Li He and the other two. At the heavens, Song Luo's group, and the others, of the Heavenly Souls sect. From the looks of it, under Qi Lian's arrangements, the Fog Pool sect's disciples had already been properly arranged. Apart from Chun Bin and a few elders, there were only Wang Quan and a few others who came with Song Luo. Master, the sect's disciples have been arranged. When will we head to the inner regions of the Heavenly Pool Mountain? Song Luo reported to Emo Qingyun respectfully and asked about Emo Qingyun's plans. Good. Since that's the case, let's go now. After hearing Song Luo's words, Emo Qingyun slowly stood up and said to Qi Lian, since there's nothing to do in the Qingyun Palace, you can come with us. Yes, young lord. Qi nodded when he heard Mo Qingyun's words. After instructing Qi to come with him, Mo Qingyun gave some instructions to the Iron Wing. Then, he led everyone out of the Qingyun Palace. After Mo Qingyun and the others left the Qingyun Palace, they went straight to the inner regions of the Heavenly Pool Mountain. Now that they had Qi, a pseudo-venerable, to escort them, Mo Qingyun and the others had a smooth journey. A few days later, Mo Qingyun and the others entered the inner regions of the Heavenly Pool Mountain and arrived at the newly built Heavenly Pool Palace. Currently, the Heavenly Pool Palace was packed with people. There were guests everywhere who had come to congratulate them. "Master, I'm going to look for senior brother Su Chao." After entering the Heavenly Pool Palace, Qiuyi transmitted her voice to Mo Qingyun and told him of her plans. Mo Qingyun didn't say much about Qiuyi's actions. He only told her, "After you see Su Chao, don't tell him my identity for now. When the time is right, I'll tell him." "Okay." After hearing Mo Qingyun's instructions, Qiuyi nodded and left. After a short while, a disciple of the Heavenly Pool Mountain brought Mo Qingyun and the others to an extremely elegant courtyard. A small wooden plaque was hung at the entrance of the courtyard. On it was written, 10 Great Spiritual Pools, Mist Pool Sect. When Song Luo and the others saw the words on the plaque, they couldn't help but tear up. From this, it could be seen that the Mist Pool Sect still held an important position in the hearts of Su Chao and the others. "We didn't suffer in vain all these years." Song Luo and the others sighed in their hearts. They became emotional as if the grievances in their hearts had been vented. "Let's go in." After glancing at the courtyard in front of him, Mo Qingyun gestured to Song Luo and the others and walked into the courtyard. However, at this moment, another group of people walked towards the Mist Pool Sect's courtyard under the guidance of a disciple. These people were all high and mighty. They held their heads high as if nothing could enter their eyes. "Sect Leader Song, your Mist Pool Sect's courtyard is here." Another disciple of the Heavenly Pool Palace led the group of people to the courtyard and pointed at it with a respectful tone. "Another group of people from the Mist Pool Sect?" Hearing this disciple's words, Mo Qingyun and Qi were both shocked. They were very surprised by the identities of these people. However, when Mo Qingyun thought of Chun Bin's words, he felt relieved. According to Chun Bin, they were only a branch of the Mist Pool Sect. Moreover, they weren't the main branch of the Mist Pool Sect's sect leader. From the looks of it, these people should be from other branches of the Mist Pool Sect. They might even be from the Mist Pool Sect's sect leader's branch. Judging from their behavior, they should be doing well. At the very least, they were doing much better than Song Luo and the others. Junior brother Song Wei. While Mo Qingyun was shocked by the other party's identity, Song Luo revealed an excited expression and looked at the leader of the group. From the looks of it, these people were indeed from other branches of the Mist Pool Sect. However, the behavior of these people made Mo Qingyun feel displeased. Song Luo's words quickly attracted their attention. A few young people walked out. "Old man, don't think that just because you're a bit older, you can use your seniority to maintain your status. Our sect leader's name is not something you can call out. Also, you're wearing our Mist Pool Sect's old uniform. Are you trying to pretend to be from the Mist Pool Sect? Today is the day that the Heavenly Pool Mountain reopens. We don't want to ruin the festivities. You should all get lost." When those young men came closer, their faces revealed arrogant expressions as they mocked and berated Song Luo. Song Luo. Chapter 956. After Song Wei exclaimed in surprise, he turned his head away and ignored Song Luo and the others. From the looks of it, he must have recognized Song Luo, but he didn't want to acknowledge him. Seeing Song Wei's reaction, the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain disciple beside Song Wei asked curiously, "Sect Leader Song, are they also from the Fog Pool Sect?" From the disciple's point of view, both sides were wearing the same clothes, so they should be from the Fog Pool Sect. However, Song Wei's reply was beyond his expectations. "Little brother, you must be joking. I don't know them." Song Wei shook his head with a faint smile, drawing a clear line between himself and Song Luo and the others. At the same time, he denied their identities. Junior Song Wei, hearing Song Wei's words, Song Luo revealed a nervous expression and wanted to explain. He couldn't accept that Song Wei had clearly recognized him, but pretended not to know him. However, before Song Luo could speak, Emo Qingyun raised his hand and interrupted him. "Let's go in." Then, Emo Qingyun looked at Song Wei and the others with disgust and walked into the small courtyard. From Emo Qingyun's point of view, these people didn't even acknowledge the people from the sect, so they probably weren't loyal to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. "Yes, Master." Hearing Emo Qingyun's instructions, Song Luo and the others didn't say anything else and followed Emo Qingyun into the small courtyard. "Master?" Song Wei's expression was slightly stunned, revealing a trace of surprise. He couldn't help but look at Emo Qingyun a few more times. He was very clear about Song Luo's background. Song Luo was a disciple of a Fog Pool sect Grand Elder. However, that Grand Elder had died 80 years ago. Therefore, Emo Qingyun obviously couldn't be that Grand Elder. As such, it was somewhat unusual for Song Luo to address Emo Qingyun as master. Then, Song Wei turned his head to look at the few youths beside him and nodded at them. Seeing Song Wei's actions, the young men immediately understood what he was hinting at. Then, one of the young men with a pockmarked face took a step forward and shouted at Emo Qingyun and the others, "Stop right there." Hearing this, Emo Qingyun stopped and looked coldly at Song Wei and the others. Seeing Emo Qingyun and the others stop, the pockmarked youth revealed a sinister smile. He said, "This courtyard was arranged by the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain for our Mist Pool sect. Scram immediately. There doesn't seem to be disciples like you in our Fog Pool sect, right?" In response to the pockmarked youth's arrogant words, Emo Qingyun looked at them disdainfully and asked in a mocking tone, "Kid, I don't think your joke is funny at all." Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, the pockmarked youth couldn't help but smile as if he had heard the funniest joke. After seeing this, the two disciples of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain were dumbfounded. What was going on? Why were there two groups of people from the Fog Pool sect? After a brief moment of astonishment, one of the disciples of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain said to the other disciple, "Senior brother Zhang Ji, quickly report the situation here to the elders." Hearing this, the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain disciple called Zhang Ji didn't hesitate and immediately left. Seeing Zhang Ji's disciple leave, Emo Qingyun didn't waste time talking nonsense with Song Wei and the others. He directly said to Qi Lian, "Qi Lian, if they dare to take half a step into the courtyard, directly throw them out." "Yes, young lord." Qi Lian nodded in response. His expression immediately darkened as he swept his gaze over Song Wei and the others. After saying this to Qi Lian, Emo Qingyun didn't stay any longer and once again walked into the courtyard. "Kid, stop right there." Seeing the actions of Emo Qingyun and the others, the pockmarked youth immediately became angry and wanted to stop Emo Qingyun from entering the courtyard. After that, the pockmarked young man's figure flashed, and he raised his hand to grab Emo Qingyun. The pockmarked youth's strength was not weak. He had already reached the 4th level of the Divine Power Realm. His cultivation was slightly higher than Emo Qingyun's. In addition, the difference between the 4th and 3rd level of the Divine Power Realm was a small divide in the Divine Power Realm. Therefore, from the pockmarked youth's point of view, it wouldn't be difficult for him to take down Emo Qingyun with his full strength. Presumptuous. Seeing the pockmarked youth's actions, Qi Lian's face instantly darkened as he shouted angrily at the pockmarked youth. Then, a blood-colored origin energy turned into a blood-colored sound wave and blasted toward the pockmarked youth. Bang! Facing the attack of the blood-colored sound wave, the pockmarked youth didn't even have time to react before he was sent flying by the sound wave. Puff! After the pockmarked youth fell to the ground, his face turned pale and he spat out blood. He looked at Qi Lian in horror. Seeing this scene, Song Luo and the others were shocked. Their eyes were filled with respect. With just a cold shout, Qi Lian was able to injure the pockmarked youth, who was at the 4th level of the divine power realm. This wasn't something an ordinary person could possess. This red-haired elder's cultivation is at least at the 8th level of the divine power realm. Looks like he has some background. Seeing Qi Lian's powerful attack, Song Luo and the others immediately evaluated Qi Lian's strength. Following which, Song Wei and the others revealed a strong sense of reverence when they looked at Qi Lian. With the strength that Qi Lian displayed, although he couldn't take them all down, he was still able to pose a significant threat to them. After a short while, an elder in a brocade robe beside Song Wei walked toward Qi Lian and said, "Sir, it was just a spar between the younger generation. It doesn't seem appropriate for you to interfere." "I'm happy to do so. What are you going to do about it?" Qi Lian had a disdainful expression when he heard the elder's words. He coldly replied, "If it wasn't for Mo Qingyun telling him not to kill during the opening ceremony of the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain, he would have been killed. Now, with how these people offended Mo Qingyun, it was enough for them to die 100 times over." Hearing Qi Lian's arrogant words, the elder was instantly enraged. He widened his eyes and stared at Qi Lian. Scram! However, before he could speak, Qi Lian's face was filled with impatience as he angrily shouted at him. A berserk blood-colored origin energy transformed into a sharp sound wave that blasted towards the Mist Pool sect elder at an extremely fast speed. Spurt! Being hit by the sound wave, the elder immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Qi Lian with a terrified expression. Just a cold shout was enough to injure him. Qi Lian's strength could be said to be unfathomable. One had to know that his cultivation was at the peak of the 6th level of the divine power realm. He was only a step away from the 7th level of the divine power realm. Even an ordinary expert at the 9th level of the divine power realm might not be able to injure him to the point of spitting out blood with a cold shout. The limit of the divine power realm. At that moment, Qi Lian's cultivation instantly rose a few levels in the eyes of Song Wei and the others, following which the way they looked at Qi Lian underwent a huge change. Chapter 957. The one walking at the front was Zhang Ji, who had just left. It seemed that the people who had come with him were the ones he had found to mediate the conflict between Mo Qingyun and Wei Wei. Seeing the arrival of Zhang Ji and the others, Song Wei and the others were pleasantly surprised and walked towards them with flattering expressions. "Greetings to the elders of the Divine Mountain." Walking in front of Zhang Ji and the others, Song Wei and the others showed a fawning expression and bowed to them. "Yes." In response to Song Wei and the others' greetings, the few old men beside Zhang Ji nodded indifferently. However, the young woman in front of the elders looked at Song Wei and the others with disgust. This woman was none other than Qiu Yi, who had just left. At this moment, she was wearing the elder robes of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. "Sect Leader Song, what's the situation?" An elder in linen robes beside Qiu Yi asked Song Wei about the situation with a kind expression. Qiu Yi didn't say much about the actions of the elder in linen robes. She only stood to the side with a cold expression. "Elder Sun, it's like this. Not only did these people pretend to be disciples of my Fog Pool sect, they even occupied the Fog Pool sect's pavilion that the Divine Mountain had arranged for me. Just now, when we were arguing with them, they directly attacked and injured us, in a single breath." Song Wei criticized Mo Qingyun and the others many times. Elder Sun and the others' expressions changed slightly when they heard this. A trace of dissatisfaction appeared on their faces. From their point of view, if the situation was as Song Wei said, then Mo Qingyun and the others' actions weren't as simple as bullying the Fog Pool sect. They were indirectly challenging the authority of the heavenly pool sacred mountain. However, Elder Sun and the others didn't immediately express their displeasure. Instead, they looked at Qiu Yi with respectful gazes and asked, "Grand Elder Qiu Yi, what do you think about this matter?" "Grand Elder?" Hearing Elder Sun's address of Qiu Yi, Song Wei and the others' expressions immediately trembled. They looked at Qiu Yi with even more respect. Although Qiu Ye's cultivation wasn't high and was only at the peak of the 5th level of the Divine Power Realm, the fact that she could become the Grand Elder of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain meant that her identity wasn't simple. "Elder Sun, there are some things that you can't just listen to one side of the story." Qiu Yi coldly glanced at Song Wei and the others. There was no joy or anger on his face as he said coldly, "I happen to be acquainted with young Master Mo and the others. As for the specifics of this matter, I still have to ask young Master Mo and the others before coming to a conclusion." 1. When Qiu Ye's words fell into Song Wei's ears, it was as if he had been struck by lightning from the 9 heavens, causing his head to ring. He did not expect the great elder of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain to know Mo Qingyun and the others. This was not good news for them. It was even possible that their status in the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain would plummet because of this matter. Thinking of this, Song Wei's body trembled, and he unconsciously took a few steps back, feeling his legs go soft. At this moment, not only were Song Wei and the others shocked, but Elder Sun and the others were also shocked after hearing this. They were very clear about Qiu Ye's identity. She was Supreme Martial Artist Su Chao's junior sister. When they thought of this, Elder Sun and the others looked at Song Wei with a trace of sympathy. This time, Song Wei and the others were in for a bad time. While everyone had their own thoughts, Qiu Yi walked into the courtyard with a faint smile on her face. She bowed slightly to Qi Lian, who was standing in front of the courtyard, and said, "Mr. Qi, is Mr. Mo in?" "Young lord, he just entered the courtyard." In response to Qiu Ye's question, Qi Lian nodded indifferently. He gestured to Qiu Yi and said, "Miss Qiu Yi, please come in." Seeing this, Qiu Yi no longer hesitated and walked into the courtyard. Seeing Qiu Yi walk into the courtyard, Song Wei, Elder Sun, and the others' expressions changed. They followed behind Qiu Yi and wanted to enter the courtyard. "Stop right there. Without young lord's permission, none of you are allowed to enter the courtyard." Qi Lian's expression turned solemn when he saw Song Wei and Elder Sun's actions. He moved to block Song Wei and Elder Sun's path. "How dare you? Do you know where this is? Do you know who Elder Sun and the others are? How dare you speak to them like this?" Seeing Qi Lian's actions, Song Wei's expression immediately turned cold. He scolded Qi Lian and instigated conflict between Qi Lian and Elder Sun and the others. In his opinion, once Qi Lian offended Elder Sun and the others, his fate would definitely be miserable. Even Qiu Yi might not be able to protect him. "Scram! This is no place for you to speak." Seeing Song Wei's actions, Qi Lian's expression darkened. He directly shouted at him. With Qi Lian's shout, Song Wei spat out a mouthful of blood. His face paled and he was forced to retreat. Song Wei retreated over 100 steps. Only then did he manage to stabilize himself with the support of the Fog Pool sect members. His face was as pale as paper. With a shout, Song Wei, who was at the 9th level of the God tier, was heavily injured. When they saw this scene, the expressions of Elder Sun and the others trembled, and a feeling of reverence arose in their hearts for Qi Lian. Half-venerable. The red-haired elder in front of them was actually a half-venerable. Only a half-venerable could injure Song Wei, who was at the 9th level of the God tier, with a casual shout. A half-venerable was already the pinnacle of existence in the Tianhan continent. Such a person was not to be trifled with. Following this, Elder Sun and the others couldn't help but sympathize with Song Wei and the others even more. This time, Song Wei and the others had kicked an iron plate. half venerable. After knowing Qi Lian's true cultivation, Song Wei instantly wanted to die. He felt extremely wronged in his heart. Everyone was a member of the Fog Pool sect. Furthermore, they were part of the Orthodox sect master's bloodline. But in the end, Song Luo and the others, who were part of an ordinary elder's bloodline, had encountered such a powerful backer. On the contrary, their sect master's bloodline was getting worse and worse. Elder Sun, Mr. Mo's identity is a bit special. Please wait here for a moment. Seeing that Elder Sun and the others were stopped, Chiu Yi revealed a serious expression and instructed them. Yes. Hearing Chiu Ye's instructions, Elder Sun and the others were immediately filled with respect. They didn't dare to move an inch. A person who could have a half-venerable following him wasn't someone they could offend. He wasn't someone the Heavenly Pool Mountain could easily provoke either. They had no choice. Although the Heavenly Pool Mountain had a supreme being in charge, there were still 3 other sacred mountains eyeing them covetously. Unless it was absolutely necessary, they didn't want to become enemies with other powerhouses. Following this, Elder Sun and the others revealed looks of reverence as they silently waited outside the small courtyard. 15 minutes later. Half an hour later. 45 minutes later, Mo Qinyun still hadn't come out. As time passed, the cold sweat on Song Wei and the others' foreheads became faster and more frequent. They had no choice. A person who could leave an elder of the Heavenly Pool Mountain hanging like this was obviously a powerful person. He wasn't someone they could offend. Chapter 958. After glancing at Song Wei and the others, Mo Qingyun's gaze fell on Elder Sun and the others, and a gratified expression appeared on his face. At this moment, Mo Qingyun looked at Elder Sun and the others in front of him, and could not help but recall the time when he had given pointers to Elder Sun and the others. Sun Shi Lan Tua Wu Chao. You are all very good. Looking at Elder Sun and the others in front of him, Mo Qinyun suddenly felt emotional and could not help but say these words of gratification. Upon hearing Mo Qinyun's words, Elder Sun and the others were confused and did not understand what Mo Qinyun meant. Judging from the tone of Mo Qinyun's words, it was as if they had reunited with an elder after being separated for many years. Not only that, Mo Qinyun clearly looked to be in his early 20s, but the feeling he gave them was that of an elder who had experienced the vicissitudes of life. This feeling was really strange. At this moment, before Elder Sun and the others could think about it, a figure rushed in front of Mo Qinyun. Plop! The figure rushed in front of Mo Qinyun and directly knelt down in front of Mo Qinyun, revealing a terrified expression. At this moment, the person kneeling in front of Mo Qinyun was none other than the arrogant Song Wei from before. Mo, Uncle Master Mo, I was wrong, please give me a chance to change. Song Wei knelt in front of Mo Qinyun with a terrified expression, and he begged with tears and snot. He was scared. He was really scared out of his wits. It could not be helped, the feeling Mo Qinyun gave him was too frightening. Even a supreme being expert would not be able to make a half-venerable expert guard the door outside. Moreover, Mo Qinyun had left Elder Sun and the others in the cold for more than 2 hours. Was this something an ordinary person would dare to do? Looking at Song Wei's actions, Mo Qinyun frowned slightly and said with a mocking smile, Sect Leader Song, what are you doing? Didn't you just say that you don't know us? Why are you calling me martial uncle now? I don't have a martial nephew as old as you. Hearing Mo Qinyun's words, Wang Quan and the others instantly revealed expressions of worship. They were completely convinced by Mo Qinyun in their hearts. What does it mean to be awesome? This was what was truly awesome. Truly awesome people didn't need to use their strength to scare others. They didn't even need to say a word to scare others into kneeling and begging for mercy. Mo Qinyun was such a person. More importantly, Mo Qinyun didn't seem willing to accept Song Wei's pleas for mercy. This kind of action was too much of a humiliation for Song Wei. Song Wei, Weren't you very capable just now? Wasn't he dismissive of others? Now, you also have a time to ask for help? Martial uncle, I was wrong. Please give me a chance to turn over a new leaf. Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Song Wei's expression suddenly trembled. He kowtowed again and begged for mercy. Not only that, but when Song Wei kowtowed and begged for mercy, he didn't forget to yell at the people behind him, "What are you all standing there for? Hurry up and kowtow to your martial uncle." Plop, plop, hearing Song Wei's angry yell, no one dared to hesitate. They all kowtowed to Mo Qingyun and begged for mercy. After witnessing Qi Lian's terrifying cultivation, they were already afraid in their hearts. Although the Mist Pool sect wasn't weak, they didn't have a half-step venerable in charge. They didn't dare to act so presumptuously in the Sky Pool Sacred Mountain. You want to be my martial nephew? You're not qualified. Mo Qingyun glanced at Song Wei and shook his head with disdain. He looked at Song Luo beside him and said, "Song Luo, if you're willing to forgive him, you can consider taking him as a disciple. If you're not willing, then from today onwards they're no longer disciples of the Mist Pool sect." At this moment, Mo Qingyun's tone was very calm, as if he was talking about something very normal. However, no one dared to doubt Mo Qingyun's words in the slightest. No one knew how powerful a person who could make a half-step venerable guard his door was. However, there was one thing that everyone was certain of. If Mo Qingyun wanted to destroy the Mist Pool sect, it would only take a single sentence. Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Song Wei's expression immediately became bitter. He felt so wrong that he wanted to cry. Song Luo's seniority in the Mist Pool sect was the same as his. Once he agreed to take Song Luo as his master, he would be inferior to Song Luo everywhere. Thinking about how he had been showing off in front of Song Luo earlier, but would have to be inferior to Song Luo everywhere in the future, Song Wei felt extremely unwilling. However, he didn't dare to disobey. If others heard Mo Qingyun's words, they might only think that Mo Qingyun wanted to help Song Luo and expel them from the Mist Pool sect. However, when he heard Mo Qingyun's words, it wasn't like that at all. He felt that Mo Qingyun wanted to exterminate them. After thinking up to there, Song Wei revealed a pleading expression. He hugged Song Luo's trousers and begged, "Senior brother Song Luo, Master Song Luo, please forgive this disciple's mistake. Don't expel this disciple from the Mist Pool sect." Seeing Song Wei's actions, Song Luo was dumbfounded. He didn't know what to do. Mo Qingyun's current actions could be said to have thrown him a huge problem. Not to mention his previous status in the Mist Pool sect and the huge gap between him and Song Wei, with his current cultivation and alchemy ability, he wasn't enough to be Song Wei's master. Seeing Song Luo's troubled expression, Mo Qingyun immediately understood his thoughts and comforted him with a faint smile. "Don't worry. Within 5 years, I'll definitely make you a mid-level alchemy sovereign. At that time, you'll be able to hold your own in the Mist Pool sect. Become a mid-level alchemy sovereign in 5 years." After hearing Mo Qingyun's words, not only did Song Luo reveal a shocked expression, even Elder Sun and the others at the side revealed shocked expressions. In their opinion, even if a Tier 9 alchemy sovereign was here, he wouldn't have such big words. Unless that person was a mortal alchemy sovereign. However, could Mo Qingyun be a mortal alchemy sovereign? The answer was obviously impossible. Mo Qingyun was at most in his early 20s. At his age, to be able to become a Pill King was already at the peak of the heavens. However, due to Mo Qingyun's powerful background, Elder Sun and the others didn't dare to refute. In their opinion, perhaps Mo Qingyun couldn't do it, but behind Mo Qingyun, there might be such a person who could do it. After all, Mo Qingyun could make a half-venerable expert guard his door. It wasn't impossible for there to be a mortal alchemy sovereign in his sect. Compared to Elder Sun and the others' thoughts, Chiu Yi, Song Luo, and the others felt that it was only natural after hearing this. With Emo Qingyun's alchemy ability, if he really wanted to raise Song Luo into a mid-level alchemy sovereign, 5 years was more than enough. In that case, from today onwards, Song Wei, you'll be this old man's 5th disciple. Since he had Emo Qingyun backing him, Song Luo no longer had any misgivings and solemnly accepted Song Wei as his disciple. 5th disciple? Hearing Song Luo's words, Song Wei almost wanted to cry. He was the dignified Mist Pool sect master, but now he had to become Song Luo's 5th disciple. This was really difficult for him. Chapter 959. Qi Lian, since Song Wei has become Song Luo's disciple, they can also be considered disciples of the Misty Pond sect. Bring them into the courtyard to rest. Seeing that everything was taken care of, Emo Qingyun nodded his head in satisfaction and gave Qi Lian some instructions. Yes, young lord. Hearing Emo Qingyun's instructions, Qi Lian nodded his head and said to Song Wei and the others, "You guys, follow this old man inside." Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, ancestor. Thank you, senior. Song Wei and the others immediately felt deep veneration. They nodded their heads like little chicks eating rice and obediently followed Qi Lian out. After giving Qi Lian some instructions, Emo Qingyun turned to Qiu Yi and said with a faint smile, "Qiu Yi, bring me to see Su Chao." As soon as he finished speaking, Emo Qingyun no longer hesitated and walked out of the small courtyard. Thump, thump, at this moment, just as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, the sound of people falling to the ground could be heard from the courtyard. Song Wei and the others all felt their legs go soft and their faces twitch as they fell to the ground. Their foreheads were covered in cold sweat. What did Emo Qingyun just say? He said he was going to see Su Chao. Could this Su Chao be Supreme Su Chao? When this thought appeared in the minds of Song Luo and the others, their faces twitched and their hearts almost jumped out of their chests. Oh my God, thump thump! Supreme Su Chao! Emo Qingyun actually called him by his name. Wasn't this a little too awesome? At this moment, Song Luo and the others finally understood what kind of existence they had provoked. A person who dared to call a supreme by his name. Even if they used their butts to think, they would know that this was an extremely awesome existence. That was close. Song Wei and the others wiped the sweat from their foreheads. They all felt as if they had just survived a calamity. They felt as if they had just walked through the gates of hell. Immediately, Song Wei became even more envious of Song Luo. Song Luo's luck was too good to have such a powerful backer. With Song Luo and the others' relationship with Emo Qingyun, even if they didn't rely on the Heavenly Lake Sacred Mountain, they would still be able to do whatever they wanted on the Tianhun continent. Thinking of this, Song Wei swallowed his saliva and softly asked Song Luo, who was beside him, "Master, the Su Chao that martial ancestor Qingyun mentioned, could it be?" Although Song Wei had already guessed who the Su Chao Emo Qingyun had mentioned was, he still couldn't help but ask. Not only that, after knowing how awesome Emo Qingyun was, even if Song Wei was dissatisfied with Song Luo, he didn't dare to act rashly. It couldn't be helped. Song Luo was lucky to have found such an awesome backer like Emo Qingyun. I'm not too sure either, but it should be close. Song Luo was also extremely shocked in his heart when he recalled Emo Qingyun's earlier words. His expression was solemn as he replied, "Moreover, it is best that you do not ask too much about Master in the future. There are some things that you are not qualified to know." Yes, 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 this disciple understands. Song Wei nodded his head in reverence. Song Luo was right. If he knew too much about existences like Emo Qingyun, it wouldn't be a good thing. As the saying goes, the more you know, the faster you die. Song Luo didn't say anything else after that. He silently followed behind Qi Lian. On the way to Sovereign Su Chao's residence, Emo Qingyun and Qiu Yi walked side by side at the front, chatting and laughing with each other as if they were very familiar with each other. Elder Sun and the others followed closely behind, not daring to make a sound for fear of disturbing Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi. At this moment, Mo Qingyun gave Elder Yu Sun and the others an extremely mysterious feeling, filling their hearts with curiosity. Just who was Mo Qingyun? From Mo Qingyun's tone, it seemed like apart from Qiu Yi, he was extremely familiar with Sovereign Su Chao as well. If it weren't for the fact that Mo Qingyun was extremely familiar with Sovereign Su Chao, he wouldn't have had the right to call Sovereign Su Chao by name with his cultivation at the 3rd level of the God tier. Master, why have you suddenly thought of meeting First Senior Brother? Qiu Yi had a curious expression on her face as she turned to look at Mo Qingyun beside her. She communicated with Mo Qingyun silently. As Mo Qingyun didn't want to reveal his identity, she could only communicate with Mo Qingyun about these obscure topics through communication. I was indeed planning on not reuniting with Su Chao for now, but I've changed my mind earlier. Mo Qingyun did not hide anything from Qiu Ye's question. He replied indifferently, I feel like the banquet of Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain won't be peaceful this time. It's inevitable that many people will make things difficult for us. In order to not make things difficult for Su Chao, I'll step forward and take care of all the trouble when the time comes. However, I need to inform Su Chao first so that he can prepare himself mentally. I see. Qiu Yi revealed a look of understanding as he understood Mo Qingyun's good intentions. Afterwards, Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi chatted as they walked and arrived at Sovereign Su Chao's residence. Mr. Mo, my senior brother is inside. Let's go in. Qiu Yi smiled playfully at Mo Qingyun when they arrived outside Sovereign Su Chao's residence. She made an inviting gesture. The expressions of Elder Sun and the others changed when they saw Qiu Yi's actions. They seemed to have noticed something unusual. Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi didn't care about what Elder Sun and the others thought. They walked straight into Sovereign Su Chao's residence. Soon, a handsome young man appeared before Mo Qingyun. The young man wore a green robe and sat quietly in front of a cauldron. He seemed to be refining some kind of pill. Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi didn't say anything when they saw the young man's actions. They just sat down silently. The young man didn't say anything when Mo Qingyun and Qiu Yi arrived. He was still fully immersed in refining the pill. Time passed little by little just like that. A few hours later, the aura in the cauldron became a little restless. It seemed like the pill refinement was about to fail. The young man in front of the cauldron frowned when he saw this. There was a hint of helplessness on his face. He seemed to have expected this and was about to give up on the cauldron of pills. Calm your mind and stabilize the flames in the cauldron. Don't give up on the pills in the cauldron until the very last moment. Mo Qingyun's expression became more serious when he saw the young man's expression. He warned him. Mo Qingyun's figure moved. He quickly arrived beside the young man in the robe and quickly formed a series of hand seals with his hands. After the hand seals were formed, they emitted rays of resplendent light and flew into the cauldron. As the hand seals entered the cauldron, the restless aura in the cauldron gradually stabilized. Then, a dense pill fragrance spread from the cauldron. A strange pill image flew out. The pill was a success. Chapter 960. You know it's me? Mo Qingyun's expression shifted slightly when he heard Supreme Su Chao's words. He was surprised. In Mo Qingyun's opinion, he had yet to reveal his true identity to Supreme Su Chao. However, Mo Qingyun thought of a possibility after a brief moment of confusion. Qiu Yi must have exposed his identity. Mo Qingyun turned to Qiu Yi. Qiu Yi stuck out her tongue guiltily when she saw Mo Qingyun looking at her. You little girl. Mo Qingyun shook his head helplessly when he saw Qiu Yi's reaction. His guess was confirmed. It was indeed Qiu Yi who had exposed his identity. However, he did not blame her for it. Supreme Su Chao chuckled when he saw Mo Qingyun looking at Qiu Yi. He explained on Qiu Yi's behalf, Master, it's like this. I noticed some changes to Junior Sister's physique, so I guessed that she must have consumed the 9 Revolutions body-shaping pill. Under my continuous questioning, she told me where the 9 Revolutions body-shaping pill came from. Then, she accidentally revealed your true identity. Don't worry about it. Originally, I came to find you this time to tell you my identity. Mo Qingyun waved his hand at Supreme Su Chao's explanation. He did not take it to heart at all. Qiu Yi and Supreme Su Chao were relieved when they heard Mo Qingyun's words. They exchanged glances with one another. Su Chao, come here for a moment. I have something to tell you. Mo Qingyun did not beat around the bush when he saw that his identity had been exposed. He went straight to the point. Many people will cause trouble during the celebration of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain the day after tomorrow. The Sky Sword Sacred Mountain, the Beast Sacred Mountain, and the Demonic Spear Sacred Mountain will probably do something in secret too. I'll deal with the trouble for you when the time comes. You can just host the celebration without any worries. Master, if you do that, won't you offend the 3 divine mountains and put yourself in danger? Supreme Su Chao immediately became nervous when he heard Mo Qingyun's suggestion. A sliver of worry appeared on his face as he said, Master, why don't you stay out of this? Just leave everything to me. The 3 divine mountains won't dare to go too far. Master, eldest senior apprentice brother is right. With the current strength of the Qin Yun Palace, they are definitely no match for the 3 divine mountains. Qiu Yi also looked worried after hearing Supremacy Su Chao's words. She tried to persuade Mo Qingyun. Haha, you don't have to worry. I have my own plans for doing this. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly and shook his head in response to the 2's worried words. He replied, At that time, I'm afraid they won't come looking for trouble. In short, you just have to focus on hosting the banquet. Yes. Qiu Yi and Supreme Su Chao did not say anything more after hearing Mo Qingyun's words. They both nodded in agreement. With their understanding of Mo Qingyun, they knew that Mo Qingyun was definitely confident since he had said so. Afterwards, Mo Qingyun gave some more instructions to Supreme Su Chao before returning to the courtyard of the Mist Pond sect alone. Mo Qingyun returned to the courtyard of the Mist Pond sect. After giving some instructions to Qi Lian, he directly entered the 5 Directions Pagoda to cultivate. Now, there were only 2 days left before the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountains banquet would be held again. Mo Qingyun planned to use these 2 days to improve his cultivation and directly break through to the 4th level of the Transcendent Realm. After entering the 2nd floor of the 5 Directions Pagoda, Mo Qingyun immediately took out a large amount of Origin Holy Rock and piled it up around him. After a while, several huge mountains of Elemental Spirit Stone appeared around Mo Qingyun's body. The Devouring Gate. After taking out the Origin Holy Rock, Mo Qingyun no longer hesitated and immediately used the Devouring Gate. Afterwards, a flickering gate of light appeared above him, emitting a shocking devouring power. Under the absorption of the devouring power, streams of Origin energy flew out from the surrounding mountains of Origin energy. After the streams of Origin energy flew out, they were absorbed by the devouring power and entered Mo Qingyun's body. When he sensed the pure Origin energy entering his body, Mo Qingyun didn't think too much about it and directly refined it. As Mo Qingyun continuously refined the Origin energy, the aura he emitted became stronger and stronger. 10 days later in the 5 Directions Pagoda, as Mo Qingyun continuously absorbed the Origin energy, the aura he emitted finally reached a limit. Seeing this, Mo Qingyun did not think too much and controlled his Origin energy to break through the barrier of the 4th layer of the God tier. Boom! Under Mo Qingyun's all-out attack, the barrier of the 4th layer of the God tier was instantly broken through like a mud wall. Immediately, the aura emitted from Mo Qingyun's body suddenly increased by more than 1-fold. Following the breakthrough of the 4th layer of the God tier, Mo Qingyun clearly felt that his strength had instantly increased by several-fold. At this moment, if Mo Qingyun were to meet the demigod Xue Sha again, he would be able to easily fight him even if he did not use his trump cards. There's still some time before the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountains mountain gate reopens. I can stabilize my cultivation level. Mo Qingyun calculated the time in his heart and did not think too much about it as he once again entered into his cultivation. Half a month later in the 5 Directions Pagoda. Peak of the middle stage of the 4th layer of the God tier. At this moment, Mo Qingyun, who was in the middle of his cultivation, slowly opened his eyes and revealed a surprised expression. After half a month of cultivation, not only had his cultivation level stabilized, but it had also risen to the peak of the middle stage of the 4th layer of the God tier. This kind of improvement speed really made Mo Qingyun feel overjoyed at the turn of events. The Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountains mountain gate reopens soon. It's time to leave the 5 Directions Pagoda. Mo Qingyun's figure moved and left the 5 Directions Pagoda. He opened the door and walked out. When Mo Qingyun opened the door, Qi Lian and the others were already waiting here, waiting for him to attend the banquet together. Young Lord! Master! Martial Granduncle! Seeing Mo Qingyun walk out of the room, Qi Lian and the others revealed a respectful expression and bowed to Mo Qingyun. Since everyone is here, let's go and join the banquet. Glancing at Qi Lian and the others in front of him, Mo Qingyun said to them and walked out of the small courtyard. Seeing Mo Qingyun walk out of the small courtyard, Song Luo and the others did not dare to hesitate and quickly followed behind Mo Qingyun. God Tier 4. Song Luo and the others followed behind Mo Qingyun. When they felt the fluctuation of aura from Mo Qingyun's body, their expressions changed drastically. Mo Qingyun's cultivation level had another breakthrough. From the time they met Mo Qingyun until now, it had only been a few months and Mo Qingyun's cultivation level had jumped by 4 levels. This kind of cultivation speed really shocked them quite a bit, making them revere Missouri Qingyun even more. Chapter 961. The Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain was one of the 9 most powerful organizations of the Heavenly Soul continent. Now that the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain had reopened, there were naturally countless people who had come to congratulate them. The main hall of the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain was filled with tables filled with all sorts of fine wine and delicacies. However, not all organizations that had come to congratulate them had the right to sit in the main hall. If they wanted to sit in the main hall, they had to possess a certain level of strength or be related to the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain. As one of the 10 great spiritual pools of the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain, the Mist Pool sect naturally had the right to sit in the main hall. Perhaps because of Sovereign Su Chao's special arrangements, the Mist Pool sect's table was actually the one closest to the main hall. After entering the main hall, Mo Qingyun looked around and saw the Mist Pool sect's table. Seeing this, Mo Qingyun didn't hesitate any longer. He led Song Luo and the others to the Mist Pool sect's table. When they saw Mo Qingyun and the others walk to the table at the very front, the people from the other organizations all revealed looks of envy. Even as envy appeared on their faces, jealousy and unwillingness rose up in their hearts. They were all very unconvinced. How could a declining Mist Pool sect have the right to sit in the first guest seat? However, due to the special circumstances, the people from the other organizations didn't dare to directly express their displeasure, even though they were displeased. After Mo Qingyun and the others took their seats, quite a few other organizations arrived and sat down at their respective tables. Roughly 15 minutes later, the people from the various organizations all sat down at their respective tables, waiting for Sovereign Su Chao to appear. Not long after, Sovereign Su Chao and the others walked into the main hall under everyone's waiting. They sat down at the very front of the hall. Today, the Heavenly Pool Divine Mountain has reopened. In order to thank everyone for coming, I've prepared some wine and dishes to entertain everyone. Please feel free to do as you please. Sovereign Su Chao raised his wine cup and nodded towards everyone with a smile. Now that the mountain has reopened, there are many things to do. If there's anything I haven't done to entertain everyone, I hope you won't mind. Seeing Exalt Su Chao's actions, the crowd was filled with deep veneration. They all stood up and returned the greeting. You're exaggerating, Exalt Su Chao. We're already extremely fortunate that the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain is willing to treat us like this. The 1,000-year Moon River wine is worth 1,000 gold coins per drop. It's a priceless wine. For Supremacy Su Chao to treat us with this wine is our greatest fortune. Exalted Su Chao, please don't say that. Otherwise we will all die from shame. In an instant, all kinds of flattering words came out from the mouths of the various forces. Hee, as long as everyone doesn't mind. Seeing everyone's reaction, Supremacy Su Chao smiled in satisfaction. He spread his hands and said, if that's the case, feel free to do as you please. I still have some matters to attend to, so I'll have to excuse myself for a moment. After saying those words, Exalted Su Chao stood up and began to walk out of the palace hall. Take care, Supreme Rising Star. Seeing Exalted Su Chao's actions, the crowd once again hurriedly stood up to respectfully send him off. No one present was displeased by Supremacy Su Chao's departure. Instead, they felt that it was only natural. Who was Supremacy Su Chao? He was an utmost exalted. For him to come out and offer everyone a toast was already giving them a great deal of face. Could it be that they were going to have Supremacy Su Chao accompany them to the end of the meal? That was clearly unrealistic. Furthermore, with an utmost exalted sitting there, they wouldn't be able to relax while eating. Following Supremacy Su Chao's departure, the atmosphere in the palace hall eased up a lot. The people from the various forces who were familiar with each other began to exchange toasts. At this moment, a few people who had the intention of ruining the banquet of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain revealed sinister smiles on their faces. One by one, they became restless. Not long after, a young man with a cold smile on his face walked over to Emo Qingyun and the others with a wine cup in his hand. Isn't this sect master Song who was kneeling and begging for forgiveness? Looking at Song Wei in front of him, the young man pretended to be surprised and mocked. Sect Master Song, your Misty Pond sect is one of the 10 great spiritual ponds of the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. Now that you've recognized someone else as your master, are you planning to betray the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain? Hearing the young man's words, the expressions of the people from the various forces couldn't help but change. They began to point fingers at Song Wei. Lu Xuanqi is right. The Misty Pond sect's actions are indeed suspicious of betrayal. This Misty Pond sect really doesn't know what's good for them. It's rare for Supremacy Su Chao to think so highly of them and even arrange the first guest seat for them. Lu Xuanqi is known to have an iron mouth and golden teeth. He's cultivated the ability to speak like a flowing river. He's once relied on his sharp tongue to kill a demonic beast at the intermediate level. Song Wei is truly unlucky to have offended him. Lu Xuanqi's Saint Book sect is a sect with a pseudo-exalted realm expert. This time, Song Wei can only suffer in silence. That's right. The current Misty Pond sect is no longer the Misty Pond sect of the past. They can only endure the humiliation of the Saint Book sect. Seeing Lu Xuanqi's actions, the surrounding people revealed sympathetic expressions. They all looked at Song Wei with different expressions. Seeing the gazes of the surrounding people, Song Wei couldn't help but frown. He wanted to refute Lu Xuanqi's words. Although Lu Xuanqi's words were unpleasant to hear, Song Wei couldn't deny that Lu Xuanqi was speaking the truth. As such, if he didn't immediately explain clearly, the Misty Pond sect might be branded as a traitor. However, before Song Wei could speak, Emo Qingyun raised his hand and interrupted him. He smiled faintly and said, Song Wei, when we're eating, if a dog comes to pick up bones to eat, just throw a bone to it. Why care about which bone it eats? After Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he picked up a bone from the table and threw it in front of Lu Xuanxi. At this moment, Mo Qingyun's meaning couldn't be more obvious. He was indirectly saying that Lu Xuanxi was a dog that came to pick up bones to eat. No, this couldn't be called indirect. It was more appropriate to call it direct. Many thanks for Martial Uncle's teachings. This disciple understands. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Song Wei immediately revealed a look of understanding. He humbly nodded at Mo Qingyun. Then, Song Wei didn't say anything else. He silently sat beside Mo Qingyun and no longer paid attention to Lu Xuanxi. Brat Yu, seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Lu Xuanxi's face instantly darkened. He widened his eyes and glared at Mo Qingyun. He, Lu Xuanxi, was the #1 genius of the Saint Book sect, a pseudo-exalted realm sect. He had created a sharp tongue attack. Right now, he was actually being humiliated by a brat at the 4th level of the divine power realm. This wasn't something he could tolerate. Chapter 962. What's wrong? I gave you a bone and you're still not satisfied? Mo Qingyun mocked Lu Xuanxi when he saw his actions. He didn't take Lu Xuanxi seriously at all. After mocking Lu Xuanxi, Mo Qingyun's expression turned cold. He said to Song Wei and the others, "You don't have to talk to such an ungrateful dog. Just slap him and let him know that a dog should have the awareness of being a dog." At this moment, while Mo Qingyun was teaching Song Wei and the others, a red figure beside Mo Qingyun turned into an afterimage and charged towards Lu Xuanxi. Then, everyone saw a huge bloody palm descend from the sky and crush Lu Xuanxi. Slap! Under the slap of the bloody palm, Lu Xuanxi was like a smelly fly. He was directly slapped to the ground and remained motionless. Qilian was a half-step supremacy expert. With Lu Xuanxi's level 5 transcendent cultivation, how could he block him? After smacking Lu Xuanxi to the ground, Qilian didn't stop moving. He reached out to grab Lu Xuanxi again. Qilian grabbed Lu Xuanxi's neck and lifted him up from the ground. Stop! Seeing Qilian's actions, the expressions of the accompanying elders from the Saint Book sect instantly changed. Then, the Saint Book sect's elders no longer hesitated and attacked Qilian. The moment the Saint Book sect's elders attacked, they released a shocking aura. Their level 9 transcendent cultivation was fully revealed. At the same time, a long stream of words formed around the Saint Book sect's elders. The moment these words appeared, they turned into spears and blades of words and slashed towards Qilian's head. Scram! Qilian's face darkened when he saw the Saint Book sect's elders attacking. He raised his hand and blasted out a palm. Then, a terrifying blood-colored yuan power exploded from Qilian's palm and turned into a huge bloody palm. Once the bloody palm was formed, it crushed towards the Saint Book sect's elders with the force of Mount Tai. Bang bang bang, under the crushing pressure of the sky blood palm, the elders of the Saint Book sect were unable to resist and were sent flying by the sky blood palm. Pucci, after the elders of the Saint Book sect landed on the ground, they all spat out blood and their faces turned pale. However, they didn't care about their injuries. Instead, they looked at Qilian in fear and said, You're the blood refiner demon king, Qilian? No one knew blood-refining demon king better than the Saint Book sect. As a vassal sect of the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain, the Saint Book sect had once helped Li He to encircle and annihilate Qilian. During this process, many experts of the Saint Book sect had died at Qilian's hands. Therefore, the Saint Book sect hated Qilian to the bone. Furthermore, the Saint Book sect was undoubtedly the clearest about the characteristics of Qilian's technique. Whoosh! Hearing the words of the elders of the Saint Book sect, the hall burst into an uproar. Everyone's eyes widened. What? That red-haired elder is the blood refiner demon king from 1,000 years ago? Wasn't he killed by the sword honorable Li? How did he come back to life? 1,000 years ago, the blood refiner demon king's cultivation was only at the peak of the transcendent realm. Now, his cultivation seems to have reached the level of a half-transcendent. It's said that 1,000 years ago, the blood refiner demon king defeated a half-transcendent. Does that mean he can kill a half-transcendent now? In an instant, everyone was shocked. Respect for Qi Lian rose in their hearts. Although 1,000 years had passed, Qi Lian's reputation in their hearts showed no signs of weakening. Mr. Qi is the blood refiner demon king. At this moment, not only were the surrounding people shocked, but Song Luo and the others were also shocked when they knew Qi Lian's true identity. They had never thought that the red-haired elder beside them, who usually didn't smile, would be a murderous demon from 1,000 years ago. This news was too unexpected for them. It was too hard for them to accept. However, compared to the shock of Qi Lian's true identity, Song Luo and the others were even more shocked that a ruthless person like Qi Lian would submit to Mo Qingyun wholeheartedly. Immediately, Song Luo and the others' admiration for Mo Qingyun increased by many times. Master, you can even subdue the blood refiner demon king. That's really admirable. Even the blood refiner demon king submitted to Grand Uncle. We are really lucky to be able to submit to him. After knowing Qi Lian's identity, Song Luo, Song Wei, and the others were shocked. A strong feeling rose in their hearts. Haha, I didn't think that after so many years, there would still be people in the Saint Book sect who would remember me. Seeing that the elders of the Saint Book sect recognized him, Qi Lian didn't hide his identity. He sneered and said, however, after so many years, the Saint Book sect hasn't changed at all. You are still the most loyal dogs of the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain. Hearing Qi Lian's mocking words, the elders of the Saint Book sect were furious. They didn't know how to refute Qi Lian. Qi Lian's words were true. Although the Saint Book sect was half a sect, they had always been in cahoots with the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain. Seeing that the elders of the Saint Book sect had nothing to refute, Qi Lian didn't want to waste time talking to them. He carried Lu Xuanxi to Mo Qingyun and asked, "Young lord, how should we deal with this brat?" At that moment, when Qi Lian was asking Mo Qingyun, Lu Xuanxi's lips moved slightly as if he was mumbling something. Seeing Lu Xuanxi's actions, the corners of Mo Qingyun's mouth curled up slightly. He sneered and said, "A battle of words? Since your mouth is so powerful, I want to see if your mouth is more powerful or if my palm is more powerful." After Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he didn't hesitate and directly slapped Lu Xuanxi. Slap, 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 slap. With Mo Qingyun's actions, a series of crisp slaps sounded from Lu Xuanxi's mouth. In a short while, Lu Xuanxi's mouth was swollen like a pig's head. His original appearance was unrecognizable. However, Mo Qingyun didn't stop there. Instead, he continued to slap Lu Xuanxi's mouth. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, some of the people who had been instigated by the 3 sacred mountains finally couldn't take it anymore. They said unhappily, "Mo Qingyun, Lu Xuanxi is the same as you and me. He is a 3rd-generation disciple of a major sect. This is a fair fight between us. Why do we need to involve the elders of our sects? Finally, you can't take it anymore?" Chapter 963. As soon as Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he slowly stood up and walked towards the person. With every step Mo Qingyun took, the pressure on this person's body increased by a notch. When Mo Qingyun was 10 meters away from the person lost his footing and took a step back, knocking into the table behind him. Clang. Under this person's collision, the table was directly knocked to the side, making a series of ear-piercing sounds. After seeing this scene, the expressions of the surrounding people changed, and their expressions revealed intense shock. Emo Qingyun had actually made Wang Su lose his mind with just his aura, causing fear to appear in his heart. As a result, what could Wang Su use to fight against Emo Qingyun? Wang Su is a heaven's pride from a pseudo-sovereign faction, the music rhythm sect. He specializes in the power of the soul. The strength of his mental state far surpasses his peers. How could he be frightened by Emo Qingyun? This scene is truly too strange. It looks like Emo Qingyun is truly not simple. No wonder he could subdue the Mist Pond sect. It looks like the first guest seat was not arranged for the Mist Pond sect, but for Emo Qingyun's faction. That's right. Emo Qingyun's faction can recruit the Blood Refinement Demon King. They are indeed qualified to sit in the first guest seat. It's just that Emo Qingyun is too sharp. He's offended several pseudo-sovereign factions in succession. This may not be a good thing for his faction. At this moment, everyone's impression of Emo Qingyun could not help but change. In their opinion, Emo Qingyun's current actions were truly a little reckless. Emo Qingyun did not pay attention to what everyone thought. Instead, he looked at Wang Su with a mocking expression and said, "Are you afraid?" Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Wang Su's face immediately flushed red. He did not know how to refute Emo Qingyun. Just a moment ago, he was indeed afraid. He had been frightened by Emo Qingyun's aura. But could he say such a thing out loud? If he said it out loud, then not only would he, Wang Su, have no face to see others in the future, even their music rhythm school would become the laughingstock of others. Seeing that Wang Su was at a loss for words, unable to refute Emo Qingyun's question, everyone's gaze towards him involuntarily changed once again. From the looks of it, Wang Su was indeed frightened by Emo Qingyun's imposing manner just now. Seeing the mocking eyes of the people around him and the actions of pointing at him, Wang Su's face instantly darkened, and he said angrily, "Emo Qingyun, you've gone too far." As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Su took out a zither and laid it flat on his lap. He raised his hand and played the zither strings. A mighty army of 1,000 armored cavalry in formation. Under Wang Su's vibrations, the zither strings immediately erupted with an astonishing aura, producing numerous sharp soul sound waves. As soon as these soul sound waves appeared, they turned into armored warhorses and charged towards Emo Qingyun. Bang bang bang, under the impact of these soul sound waves, the surrounding ground and tables were instantly blown away, causing the scene to become a little messy. At the same time, the expressions of the people seated at the surrounding tables changed, revealing a trace of shock. This is the war song Wang Su created in the Heaven Spirit Tomb 5 years ago, Mighty Army of 1,000. It's said that Wang Su relied on this war song to not lose a single battle against an expert at the high level of the ability stage, and even injured his opponent's mind. Emo Qingyun is only at the 4th level of the ability stage. If the Blood Refiner Demon King didn't protect him, he probably wouldn't have been able to block Wang Su's attack. Seeing Wang Su attack with his full strength, the expressions of the surrounding people changed, and they couldn't help but feel worried for Emo Qingyun. So he's from the music rhythm school. No wonder he stepped forward to help Lu Xuanqi. After learning of Wang Su's origins, Emo Qingyun's expression darkened, and he said in a disdainful tone, "This song can be used to liven things up, but it's still a little lacking if you want to use it to kill someone." Such arrogant words. Do you know music as well? Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Wang Su's expression darkened, and he retorted to Emo Qingyun, "Primordial demonic sound lute instrument talisman, come out." Emo Qingyun didn't reply to Wang Su's mocking words, and he directly took out the primordial demonic sound lute instrument talisman. Then, a jade talisman in the shape of a pipa appeared above Emo Qingyun, exuding an obscure aura. Bzzz. At the same time, illusory sound waves were released from the primordial demonic sound lute instrument talisman, bombarding the sound wave cavalry. Clang, clang, clang. When the illusory sound waves hit the sound wave cavalry, the sound of weapons clashing rang out, and an astonishing soul storm erupted. Under the impact of this soul storm, the expressions of the surrounding people changed, and they all retreated. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. Some of the weaker cultivators weren't able to dodge in time and were injured mentally. They spat out mouthfuls of blood, and their faces paled. Following this scene, the expressions of the surrounding people changed. They were shocked by the intensity of the battle between Mo Qingyun and Wang Su. One had to know that those who could sit in this hall were the strongest of the Tianhan continent, and those who could be sent here were either the leaders of their respective factions, or the genius disciples of their respective factions. But even so, these people were still injured by the battle between Mo Qingyun and Wang Su. From this, one could see just how intense the battle between Mo Qingyun and Wang Su was. While everyone was still reeling from the battle between Mo Qingyun and Wang Su, the sound wave cavalry slowly dispersed. The illusory sound waves didn't slow down in the slightest after defeating the sound wave cavalry, and they continued to bombard Wang Su. Wang Su's expression changed at the sight of the rapidly approaching sound wave, and he revealed a strong sense of fear. He could clearly feel that the illusory sound waves contained a frightening amount of soul energy. If he was hit, he would be gravely injured. It was even possible that these injuries would affect his future cultivation, limiting his future achievements. Wang Su couldn't care less. He hurriedly shouted to a young man with a golden crown, "Master Guangling, save me!" Trash. Guangling's expression turned cold at Wang Su's request. His eyes flashed with disgust as he spoke with dissatisfaction. But despite his displeasure, Guangling still moved. He drew his sword and slashed at Mo Qingyun. "You want to meddle in my business?" Mo Qingyun's lips curled into a sneer as he looked at Guangling, who was slashing at him. His gaze turned gloomy. Mo Qingyun didn't hesitate. He drew the colorless sword and slashed at Guangling. The combination of three sources. Mo Qingyun slashed casually, and the colorless sword bloomed with three colors. It turned into a sharp sword light and slashed at Guangling. "Colorless sword, you are the one who seriously injured junior fellow apprentice Fang Yuan." Chapter 964. 3 Types of Perfected Innate Powers of Origin. Looking at the incoming three-colored sword ray, Guangling was shocked at first, then he said disdainfully, "Although you have some achievements in the comprehension of origin energy, the sword technique you used is too crude. You can't hurt me with just this sword technique." When a warrior broke through to the transcendent realm, he would integrate the origin energy he comprehended into the transcendent treasure elephant. It would be called innate origin energy. On the other hand, after a warrior broke through to the transcendent realm, the origin energy he comprehended would be called acquired origin energy. This was because once the transcendent treasure elephant was formed, the origin energy could no longer be integrated into it and fused with the transcendent treasure elephant. As Guangling finished speaking, he waved the long sword in his hand with all his might, causing a shocking origin energy to erupt from the long sword. As soon as the shocking origin energy was released, it turned into a sharp sword ray and blasted towards the three-colored sword ray. Puff! Facing Guangling's sword, the three-colored sword ray was instantly defeated and turned into specks of light that dissipated. However, after Guangling's sword defeated the three-colored sword ray, it also dissipated in midair. Puff! At the same time, Wang Su was also hit by the magical sound wave. He spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. After blocking Guangling's attack, Mo Qingyun turned to look at Guangling and said, "I didn't expect this attack to injure you. I just wanted to use it to block you. As for you, even if you used your full strength against me, you wouldn't be able to stop me from seriously injuring Wang Su." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Guangling's face turned gloomy and his eyes revealed a strong killing intent. Emo Qingyun's words were undoubtedly a great insult to him, indirectly mocking him for being useless. So what if Guang Ling attacked? In the end, under Emo Qingyun's attack, Wang Su was directly heavily injured to the point that his divine soul was injured. Humph! I just casually swung my sword. Next, I'll show you my true strength. As Guang Ling spoke, he pointed his longsword at Emo Qingyun, intending to kill Emo Qingyun right here and now to avenge his humiliation. With regards to Guang Ling's actions, Emo Qingyun did not seem to mind at all. His expression was indifferent as he turned around and said, "Today is the day that the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain reopens. If you want to fight with me, then follow me out. Otherwise, you will ruin the banquet set up by the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain." With that, Emo Qingyun no longer paid any attention to Guang Ling and walked out of the hall. Seeing Emo Qingyun's actions, Guang Ling and the others hesitated, wondering if they should follow Emo Qingyun. This time, their main purpose of coming to the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain was to ruin the banquet. Originally, they thought that if they were to engage in an intense battle with Emo Qingyun, they would be able to destroy the banquet at the Heavenly Pool Sacred Mountain. Who knew that Emo Qingyun would suddenly suggest to fight outside? This instantly messed up their plans. At that moment, while Guang Ling and the others were hesitating, Emo Qingyun, who had walked to the entrance of the hall, stopped. He turned his head to look at Guang Ling and mocked. "Didn't you say that you were powerful just now? Why did you become a coward when it's time to fight? Don't tell me that all the sects in the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain are trash like you, who only know how to talk and not practice? Brat, don't be so arrogant." Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, even if Guang Ling had a good temper, he could no longer remain calm. Furthermore, Guang Ling was not someone who was easy to talk to. Naturally, he was even more furious. At that moment, Guang Ling was not the only one who was furious. Even the other members of the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain were enraged. As for the forces that were attached to the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain, they were all furious in order to seize the opportunity to curry favor with the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain. In an instant, Emo Qingyun's words seemed to have angered everyone. At that moment, while everyone was enraged by Emo Qingyun's words, Guang Ling walked out of the hall. At that moment, he could no longer care about anything else. The only thought in his mind was to kill Emo Qingyun on the spot. Seeing the reaction of Guang Ling and the others, Emo Qingyun smiled satisfactorily and walked towards the training ground of the Sky Pool Sacred Mountain. He had achieved his goal. Now, he had completely diverted the attention of the three Sacred Mountain people from the Sky Pool Sacred Mountain from destroying the banquet to him. Emo Qingyun was undoubtedly very familiar with the terrain of the Sky Pool Sacred Mountain. Soon, Emo Qingyun arrived at the training ground and waited for Guang Ling and the others to arrive. Soon, Guang Ling and the others arrived at the training ground of the Sky Pool Sacred Mountain aggressively. At that moment, other than the people from the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain, there were also many people from other forces who had arrived at the training ground. They wanted to see how Emo Qingyun would resolve the current situation. Kid die. Guang Ling arrived at the training ground and did not say much to Emo Qingyun. Instead, he slashed at Emo Qingyun with his sword. Suddenly, a terrifying aura exploded from the long sword in Guang Ling's hand. A sword radiance that was 10 meters long shot out from it. Kid, I will now show you the power of the fusion of the four origin energies. After Guang Ling slashed out with his sword, he revealed a proud expression and said arrogantly. After Guang Ling slashed out with his sword, the surrounding people's expressions changed drastically. They were shocked by the power of Guang Ling's sword. 4 types of origin energies. Guang Ling is indeed a genius of the Sky Sword Sacred Mountain. It seems like he has few opponents in the same rank as him. Humph! A bunch of mediocre people without foresight. Can't you see that senior brother Guang Ling's sword force realm has reached the minor accomplishment stage? Minor accomplishment stage of Sword Force realm. Guang Ling's talent in Sword Principle is really unattainable. That's right. Even experts at the peak of the Divine Power realm rarely comprehend Sword Force to such an extent. Guang Ling's only at the 6th level of the Divine Power realm. The difference in strength between Guang Ling and Wang Su is too great. With his strength, he can probably fight against experts at the 8th level of the Divine Power realm. Emo Qingyun's provocation of him was an unwise choice. Seeing Guang Ling's attack, the surrounding people's expressions changed drastically. Their eyes were filled with intense shock. Obviously, the strength that Guang Ling displayed had completely shattered their understanding. However, compared to the shock of the surrounding people, Emo Qingyun's expression was indifferent. He said disdainfully, "It's just 4 types of origin energies. Moreover, the 2 types of origin energies, fire and metal, were comprehended after your cultivation broke through to the Divine Power realm. Humph! Even so, it's enough to kill you." Chapter 965. 5 Origins as One. Faced with Guang Ling's fierce attack, Emo Qingyun did not hesitate and waved the colorless sword in his hand. With a wave of Emo Qingyun's colorless sword, 5 kinds of dazzling light bloomed and turned into a gorgeous, 5-colored sword ray. The 5-colored sword radiance blossomed from the colorless sword and met Guang Ling's strike with the force of a thunderbolt. Bang bang bang! The 2 sword rays collided in midair and bloomed like fireworks, falling from the sky bit by bit. Behind this magnificent radiance, an astonishing Yuan power storm was silently forming. Very quickly, at the place where the 2 sword gleams collided, a storm of elemental energy formed and spread wildly towards the surroundings. Emo Qingyun and Guang Ling retreated swiftly under the effects of the Yuan energy storm, and they avoided the sweeping of the Yuan energy storm. After a while, Emo Qingyun and Guang Ling stopped and stood in the middle of the martial arts practice field, staring at each other. 5 types of perfected innate origin powers. Guang Ling's face was filled with shock as he recalled the perfect Xiantian source energy contained in Emo Qingyun's sword strike. He found it hard to believe. Emo Qingyun had comprehended 5 types of perfected innate origin powers. Of course, while Guang Ling was in disbelief, he also felt ashamed. Just a moment ago, he was still proud that he had comprehended 4 types of perfected innate origin powers. But in the blink of an eye, Emo Qingyun had displayed 5 types of perfected innate origin powers. Moreover, they were 5 types of perfected innate origin powers. It was like a slap to his face. And it was a slap to his face while asking him, "Are you still proud of comprehending 4 types of innate origin powers?" This feeling made Guang Ling very unhappy. Wow! While Guang Ling was shocked, the surrounding crowd was in an uproar. If Emo Qingyun's comprehension of 3 types of perfected innate origin powers had already shocked them, now Emo Qingyun had displayed 5 types of perfected innate origin powers, which completely stunned them. Sect Master Wang, have you heard of a genius who has comprehended 5 types of origin energy? This old man has lived for more than 400 years, but I have never heard of such a genius. Perhaps this old man's knowledge is too shallow. If I remember correctly, there was a genius in the antiquity times 10,000 years ago. He comprehended 5 types of perfect congenital origin powers when he was in the Heaven Star realm. Doesn't this mean that Emo Qingyun is the number 1 person in the past 10,000 years? What monstrous comprehension! For a moment, the way everyone looked at Emo Qingyun changed greatly. They really did not expect that Emo Qingyun's talent in comprehending the power of origin was actually the first person in the past 10,000 years. This title seemed to be a little too big. Now, do you still think that your 4 complete origin powers are very impressive? Emo Qingyun asked Guang Ling with a sarcastic smile after dissolving Guang Ling's sword light with a sword. Hearing Emo Qingyun's question, Guang Ling's expression could not help but twitch. His expression was extremely gloomy, and he snorted coldly. Humph! Even if your comprehension of origin energy is astonishing, a competition of the way of the sword still places more emphasis on the comprehension of sword force and the mastery of sword techniques. It's not like the more origin energy you comprehend, the stronger you are. Qilin Dazzling Sun Sword, Fire Qilin Prairie Fire. Guang Ling slashed out with his sword, and a shocking flame power instantly erupted from his long sword, turning into a Fire Qilin sword light. Roar! A powerful beastly roar came from the Fire Qilin sword light. At the same time, a terrifying flame also erupted from the Fire Qilin sword light, instantly turning the entire martial arts practice field into a sea of fire. However, compared to the aura of the Sea of Fire, what really shocked people was the power of the sword momentum in the Fire Qilin sword light. This was the power of the intermediate minor success sword momentum. Sensing the power of the Fire Qilin sword light, everyone's expression changed again. They were shocked by Guang Ling's sword momentum realm. The intermediate minor success sword momentum realm. It seems that when the Honorable Sword broke through to the Supreme Realm, he was only at the advanced minor success sword momentum realm, right? Guang Ling is really impressive. He's worthy of being the Honorable Sword's proud disciple. If he continues to grow, he'll definitely be another Supreme Sword Principal. Although Emo Qingyun's talent in the comprehension of the power of origin is amazing, he still can't compare to Guang Ling in the competition of Sword Principle. The use of the power of origin in battle is indeed far inferior to the power of the sword momentum. I'm afraid that Emo Qingyun will still be defeated in this confrontation. Seeing Guang Ling's shocking talent in Sword Principle, everyone's confidence in Emo Qingyun instantly weakened. Presumably, everyone felt that since Emo Qingyun's talent in comprehending the power of origin had reached such a shocking level, his talent in comprehending the power of sword momentum should be far inferior to Guang Ling's. As such, it would be very difficult for Emo Qingyun to win this battle. After all, Emo Qingyun's cultivation was only at the 4th level of the divine power realm. Emo Qingyun ignored everyone's thoughts. Instead, he looked at Guang Ling with disdain and said with a smile, "Who told you that I haven't comprehended the power of sword momentum? 6 origins in 1. As Emo Qingyun's words fell, he slashed at Guang Ling again, displaying his strength a little more. Immediately, the colorless sword bloomed with 6 different colors of light, and a 6-colored sword light burst out from it. When the 6-colored sword light burst out, it bombarded Guang Ling with an irresistible force. 6 types of perfected innate power of origin. Seeing the rapidly approaching 6-colored sword light, Guang Ling's expression finally changed drastically. His eyes widened as he uttered a shocking sentence. However, just as Guang Ling's words left his mouth, his expression became even more shocked. He said, This is the peak of the minor accomplishment sword momentum. You actually comprehended the peak of the minor accomplishment sword momentum." After a brief moment of shock, Guang Ling revealed a blank expression as he suffered a strong blow in his heart. Originally, he had planned to use his achievement in sword momentum to redeem the dignity he had just lost. However, what he did not expect was that in the competition of sword momentum achievements, he actually lost even more miserably than before. This battle could be said to be a crushing defeat for him. At this moment, under Emo Qingyun's powerful attack, Guang Ling's martial heart was directly destroyed. Bang! While Guang Ling was in a daze, the 6-colored sword light instantly blasted his body and sent him flying. Puff! After being hit by the 6-colored sword light, Guang Ling instantly spat out a mouthful of blood and lay on the ground with a pale face. His gaze was unfocused, and he did not move at all. However, everyone knew in their hearts that compared to the injury on his body, Guang Ling's mental injury was more serious. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.